Take a deep breath with me now, drawing air in through your nose and releasing it slowly through your mouth. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears as the weight of the day melts from your body, like warm honey dripping from a wooden spoon on a summer afternoon. Close your eyes gently as if you're drawing soft curtains across a window at twilight, shutting out the last golden rays of sunlight. You're floating backward past the noise of modern life, past the rush and hurry of traffic and deadlines. You drift until you find yourself in a place where time moves like thick amber, slow, golden, and peaceful, where the loudest sounds are the whisper of wind through leaves and the distant lowing of cattle in green pastures, and the faint perfume of night-blooming jasmine that climbs the walls of the village church. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale begins its evening song, a liquid melody that seems to pour like silver water over the sleeping rooftops. Cats pad silently along garden walls, their eyes glowing like amber jewels in the lamplight. A dog barks once, somewhere far off, then settles back into sleep. The building seems to have grown from the earth itself, its stones weathered to a soft gray that blends seamlessly with the twilight sky. The iron hinges on the door are not merely functional but beautiful, shaped like curling vines with leaves that seem to dance in the flickering light. The door handle is worn smooth by countless hands, polished to a warm bronze sheen that feels comfortable and familiar beneath your palm. Even the threshold stone has been carefully chosen, a single piece of granite, worn into a gentle curve that welcomes your step. Ivy climbs one wall, its leaves rustling softly in the breeze like whispered secrets. There's the metallic tang of iron and steel, but it's softened by the sweet smell of burning charcoal and the earthy scent of the clay that lines the forge. The workshop is larger than it appeared from outside, with a high ceiling supported by massive oak beams that have darkened with age and smoke to the color of rich chocolate. The walls are thick stone, but they re-softened by the tools and materials of the trade hammers of every size hanging in neat rows. The fire doesn't roar or crackle as a wood fire might. Instead, it breathes with a steady, hypnotic rhythm, the coals shifting and settling with soft whispers and gentle sighs. The light it casts is warm and golden, painting everything in the workshop with a soft, amber glow that seems to make even the most mundane objects beautiful. Tongs arranged by length and purpose, and coils of iron wire gleaming like silver serpents in the firelight. Here, things happen when they're ready to happen, but one that curves with elegant grace and ends in a spiral that catches the light like a frozen flame. This will hang in the baker's shop, he explains, turning the piece slowly in his hands so you can see how the metal flows like water frozen in motion. She asked for something that would be strong enough to hold her heaviest pots, but beautiful enough to complement her kitchen. Function and beauty, they're not opposites, you know. The best work serves both masters. Metal is heated until it glows the perfect shade of orange. It's hammered until it sings the right note under the smith's careful blows. It's cooled at exactly the right moment to achieve the desired hardness. There's no rushing, no forcing, only patience and skill working together to transform raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. Underneath these dominant notes, you detect the subtle fragrance of the oils used to treat metal and wood, the leather of the bellows. The stones are warm from the day's work, and they seem to radiate a gentle heat that rises through your body, relaxing muscles you didn't even know were tense. And a face that speaks of quiet wisdom earned through long experience. His hair is touched with silver at the temples, and his eyes hold the calm depth of someone who has found his place in the world. Its surface is polished to a mirror shined by the constant contact with hot metal, and it seems to glow with its own inner light, but there's no rush. The night is young, and sometimes the best work happens when the world grows quiet. He moves to a workbench along one wall, where several projects in various stages of completion wait for his attention. His movements are fluid and practiced, each gesture the result of years of repetition that have worn away all unnecessary motion. The anvil sits on a thick oak stump cut from a tree that grew in these very hills, and the wood has been worn smooth by the smith's movements around it. He moves with the unhurried grace of a master craftsman, each gesture economical and purposeful. And something else, something that might be called the scent of time itself, accumulated over decades of patient work. "Come in, friend," he says, his voice warm and resonant like the sound of a well-tuned bell. The night is growing cool, and there's warmth enough here to share. His accent carries the soft burr of a local dialect, words shaped by generations of his family who have worked the same forge, in the same village, under these same stars. A large wooden door, reinforced with iron bands that have been shaped by the smith's own hands, stands slightly ajar, revealing a warm glow from within. The workshop breathes with its own rhythm, the gentle whoosh of air moving through the space, the soft settling sounds of cooling metal, the whisper of ash falling in the forge. It's a living space, one that has absorbed the essence of countless hours of careful, meditative work. The sound of your own breathing mingles with the gentle symphony of evening, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, the soft creak of wooden shutters swaying in the mild breeze. The sound wraps around you like a gentle embrace, welcoming you into this world of quiet contentment. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, your breathing naturally slowing to match the rhythm of a peaceful evening. Each house you pass glows with the warm, golden light of candles and oil lamps flickering in windows, casting dancing shadows that play across the walls like friendly spirits. The windows are small and diamond-paned, some showing glimpses of families gathered around wooden tables, sharing simple meals and quiet conversation before the day's end. The year rests somewhere in the gentle heart of 14th century, when life moved to the rhythm of seasons and the sun's journey across the sky. People measured time not by the frantic ticking of clocks, but by the gradual changes of light. Here where the cobblestones end and a dirt path begins, you see a building that stands apart from the others, larger, more robust, with thick stone walls and a roof of heavy slate tiles that gleam like dark water in the moonlight, and shadow by the blooming and fading of flowers, by the migration of birds overhead. It's late evening now, and the village settles into its nightly embrace of tranquility, as it has done for countless generations before. With each exhale, release any tension, any worry, any thought that doesn't serve your rest. Your body grows heavy and relaxed, like a stone warmed by the sun all day long, now settling into the cool, welcoming earth beneath a canopy of stars. Now, let your mind drift back through time, through centuries of quiet nights and gentle dreams. Our story begins in a small medieval village, nestled in a valley where morning mist clings to rolling hills like a soft woolen blanket. You find yourself standing on a cobblestone path worn smooth by countless feet over countless years, the feet of merchants leading their pack animals to market, of children running to play by the stream of lovers walking hand in hand under starlit skies. The stones beneath you still hold warmth from the day's sun, and they seem to pulse gently with the memory of all the peaceful evenings they've witnessed, all the quiet conversations. They've heard all the dreams they've supported as people walked this path toward home and rest. The air carries the sweet scent of wood smoke from cottage chimneys, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil. As you walk along the cobblestone path, your footsteps create a soft, rhythmic tapping that echoes gently off the stone walls of the cottages. You notice how the village seems to breathe with a collective sigh of satisfaction, as if the very buildings and streets are settling into rest alongside their inhabitants. Your path leads you toward the edge of the village, where the houses grow more scattered and the gardens give way to open fields dotted with sleeping sheep. This is the blacksmith's workshop, and even in the evening quiet, it emanates a sense of strength and purpose. As you approach, you notice the details that speak of the craftsman's care and pride. The scent that greets you as you near the workshop is unlike anything in the modern world. A rich, complex aroma that speaks of honest work and ancient craft. You pause at the threshold, feeling the warmth that radiates from within. Through the doorway, you can see the figure of the blacksmith himself, a man of middle years with strong, capable hands. He looks up as you approach, and his face breaks into a gentle smile of welcome. You step across the threshold, and immediately the warmth envelops you like a comfortable embrace. The floor beneath your feet is made of large flagstones, worn smooth by generations of smiths who have walked these same paths between forge and anvil, between workbench and quenching tub. At the heart of the workshop stands the forge itself, a masterpiece of functional beauty built from fire brick and clay, its mouth glowing with the deep red of banked coals. Beside the forge stands the anvil, a massive block of steel that has been shaped and reshaped by countless blows over the decades. "I was just finishing up for the evening," the blacksmith says, his voice carrying easily through the space. You notice how the workshop seems to exist in its own pocket of time, separate from the hurried pace of the outside world. The blacksmith picks up a piece he's been working on, a simple iron hook. With both hinges complete, the blacksmith begins the final assembly process. He has prepared the pins that will hold the knuckles together, perfectly round rods of steel, carefully sized and finished to ensure smooth operation. The movement is smooth and silent, the metal surfaces sliding against each other with the whisper-quiet operation that marks superior craftsmanship. The hinges feel solid and substantial in his hands, built to last for generations of faithful service. The pins slide into place with satisfying precision, the tolerances so exact that they fit snugly without binding. He tests the completed hinges, swinging them through their full range of motion. The oil will protect against corrosion and ensure smooth operation even in the damp climate of the abbey. The blacksmith banks the fire carefully, ensuring that it will hold enough heat to restart easily in the morning while not wasting fuel through the night. Tools are cleaned and returned to their proper places. The anvil is brushed clean of scale and debris, and the floor is swept clear of the small fragments of metal and charcoal that accumulate during a day's work. The active energy of creation gives way to the satisfied calm of work well done. He ensures that all fires are properly banked, that tools are secure, that the workshop is ready for the night's rest. His movements are unhurried and deliberate, each action part of a larger pattern of responsibility and care. The tools rest in their appointed places, clean and ready for tomorrow's tasks. The shadows deepen and soften, transforming the space into something mysterious and sacred. When the work is done and the workshop settles into rest, there's a satisfaction in it that goes beyond words, the knowledge that something good has been created, that skills have been used well, that the ancient traditions continue. The tools and materials fade into the darkness, but their presence remains a sense of potential and possibility waiting for the next day's work. The workshop seems to sigh around him, the building itself settling into the peaceful rhythm of night. The thick stone walls hold the day's warmth, radiating it slowly back into the space, creating a cocoon of comfort and security. There's a satisfaction in his bearing that speaks of meaningful labor well done, of skills used in service of something larger, and the green smell of dew beginning to form on the grass, like tiny diamonds scattered by invisible hands. The faint fragrance of herbs drifts from cottage gardens, lavender and rosemary, thyme and sage, plants tended with love that now release their evening perfume into the cooling air. The contrast is gentle rather than shocking. The evening is mild, with just enough coolness to make the memory of the forge's warmth pleasant rather than oppressive. The air carries the sense of the countryside fresh grass, blooming flowers, the distant smell of the river that winds through the valley. But first, She had to find the 3 sacred stones hidden in the deepest parts of the Whispering Wood, where even the bravest knights feared to tread. The first stars appear like tiny candles being lit one by an unseen hand. The grandmother's voice carries through the glass like music, weaving magic into the evening air. She has lived in this cottage for 40 years, ever since she married young Thomas, the miller's son. Thomas passed 5 winters ago, but Meredith continues their traditions, spinning the finest wool in 3 villages and weaving cloth so beautiful that merchants from the great city come seeking her work. Her spinning wheel was her grandmother's and her grandmother's before that, carved from heartwood of the great oak that once stood in the village center. Her fingers move with practiced grace, drawing the wool into fine, strong thread that will become warm clothing for her family. The candlelight catches the silver in her hair and creates dancing shadows on the whitewashed walls, while a tabby cat sleeps peacefully in a basket by her feet. You can almost see the princess she describes, brave and true, stepping into forests where ancient trees hold secrets older than memory. And the moon, nearly full and luminous as polished silver, casts everything in soft ethereal light. The tune speaks of love that endures beyond seasons, of hands that create beauty from simple things, of the sacred act of making something useful and lovely from the gifts of the earth. The tabby cat stirs slightly at the sound, opening one green eye to regard its mistress with the contentment of a creature who knows it is perfectly loved. The thatched roofs of the cottages look dusted with fairy powder, each straw gleaming like spun gold. Night birds call softly from the trees, their voices blending with the gentle rustle of leaves and the mild breeze. Through one diamond-paned window, you glimpse a family gathered around their stone hearth. The children sit cross-legged on the rush-strewn floor, listening wide-eyed to their grandmother's gentle stories of brave knights and wise queens, their faces glowing in the firelight like cherubs in an old painting. The stars shine with brilliant clarity in the unpolluted sky, their light casting soft shadows on the cobblestone path. Her younger brother, no more than 7, clutches a wooden sword carved by their father, his eyes bright with dreams of adventure. The baby of the family sleeps peacefully in their mother's arms, tiny fingers curled like flower petals, while their father mends a fishing net by the fire's edge, his weathered hands working with the patience of generations. The forge breathes quietly, its banked coals holding just enough heat to whisper of the fires that will burn again with the dawn. The forge glows softly in the darkness, a gentle heart of warmth and light. The anvil stands ready, its polished surface gleaming faintly. The tools wait in patient rows, each one shaped by use and care into an extension of the craftsman's will and skill. Each task is performed with the same care and attention that marked the creation of the hinges. Nothing is hurried, nothing is overlooked. The coals settle with soft whispers and gentle sighs, their glow gradually fading from bright orange to deep red to the faintest hint of warmth in the darkness. It needs to be tended and cared for, respected and maintained. In the morning, they will make the journey to the abbey, where they will be installed with ceremony and blessing. But for now, they exist in the peaceful limbo between creation and use, perfect in their completion and ready for their long service. In return, it provides everything needed to create beautiful and useful things. It's a partnership that spans generations. My father worked at this same forge, and his father before him. Someday, my son will stand where I stand now, continuing the tradition. It is a final touch that speaks of the craftsman, S understanding of how his work will be used, and his commitment to its long-term performance. These will outlive the door they're mounted on, the blacksmith says with quiet pride. Probably outlive the building itself. Each piece is cushioned and secured, treated with the respect due to objects that represent hours of skilled labor and generations of accumulated knowledge. Taking raw materials from the earth and transforming them into something useful and beautiful, it is a kind of alchemy, a participation in the creative force that shapes the world. Every piece I make carries a bit of my soul, a piece of my understanding of what it means to create something lasting and good. That's the way it should be. The hardware should be the strongest part of any construction. When everything else fails, the metalwork should still be doing its job. He applies a thin coat of oil to the moving parts, working it into the joints with careful attention. The blacksmith wraps the completed hinges in soft cloth, protecting the carefully finished surfaces from scratches or damage during transport. There's something sacred about this work, he reflects as he prepares the hinges for delivery. The forge fire has burned down to glowing coals, its work for the evening complete. The workshop begins its transition from active workspace to peaceful sanctuary. As the blacksmith completes his evening routine, the workshop settles into a different kind of peace. The blacksmith moves through his final checks with the methodical care of someone who has performed this ritual countless times. A workshop is like a living thing, he explains as he works. The completed hinges rest on the workbench, wrapped in their protective cloth. The blacksmith extinguishes the oil lamps one by one, leaving only the gentle glow of the banked forge to light the workshop. "This is my favorite time," the blacksmith says softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He moves toward the door, his footsteps soft on the worn flagstones. At the doorway, the blacksmith pauses for a final look around his domain. You follow the blacksmith out into the cool night air, leaving the warmth and light of the workshop behind. The village sleeps peacefully around you, its windows dark except for the occasional flicker of a dying candle or the soft glow of banked hearth fires. The blacksmith walks beside you in comfortable silence, his day's work complete and his mind at peace. The air around you is crisp and clean, carrying the mingled scents of wood smoke curling from cottage chimneys, fresh bread cooling on windowsills from the baker's evening ovens. Above you, the sky deepens from purple to indigo, painted with brushstrokes of deep violet and midnight blue. As you walk slowly down this peaceful path, your footsteps whispering against the ancient stones, warm golden light spills from the windows of the houses like liquid sunshine. The eldest child, a girl of perhaps 10 summers with hair the color of autumn wheat, leans forward as her grandmother speaks of the crystal crown of Eldermere, lost centuries ago when the old kingdom fell to shadow. And so the brave Princess Lirelei took up her father's sword. The grandmother continues, her voice soft as silk yet strong as oak, knowing that only she could restore the light to their darkened realm. The children gasp softly, and you find yourself pausing on the cobblestone path, drawn into the tale despite yourself. Through another window, a woman spins wool by candlelight, her wheel turning with a soft, rhythmic whir that adds to the evening's lullaby. This is Meredith the Weaver, though few remember her given name anymore. As you watch, mesmerized by the hypnotic rhythm of her work, Meredith begins to hum an old song, a melody her mother taught her and her mother's mother before that. The blacksmith moves with deliberate care as he prepares for the quenching. This is one of the most critical moments in the metalworking process, the point where the heated iron will be rapidly cooled to lock in its new structure and give it the hardness it needs to function as a hinge. The oil has been carefully chosen and prepared, not too thick, not too thin, heated just enough to ensure an even cooling rate. Water cools too quickly for this type of work, it would make the metal brittle. Oil cools more gradually, giving us strength without sacrificing toughness. It's all about finding the right balance for each piece and its intended use. With a controlled motion, he lowers the hinge into the oil. The reaction is immediate and dramatic. The oil hisses and bubbles as it contacts the hot metal, sending up a small cloud of vapor that carries the scent of heated oil and cooling iron. The violent bubbling gives way to gentle ripples, and the steam dissipates into the warm air of the workshop. The quenching has made the metal very hard, but also somewhat brittle. This time, the heating is much more controlled and gradual. You can see the metal's surface beginning to change color, first a pale straw yellow, then deepening to gold, then to brown, and finally to a deep blue-purple. Tempering will give it back some flexibility while keeping most of the hardness. It's another balancing act, strength and resilience working together. For a hinge, I want something in the brown range, hard enough to resist wear, but flexible enough to handle the constant stress of opening and closing. The second, quenching locks in the temper, creating a piece of metal that has exactly the properties needed for its intended use. The blacksmith works with the concentration of a sculptor, seeing the final form within the rough piece and carefully revealing it through skilled craftsmanship. This is where the piece truly comes alive, where it transforms from merely functional to genuinely beautiful. The surface begins to gleam in the firelight, reflecting the warm glow of the forge and the dancing shadows on the workshop walls. The careful shaping becomes more apparent as the finish improves, the subtle curves that will allow smooth movement, the precise angles that will distribute stress evenly, the small decorative elements that mark this as the work of a master craftsman. The monks will see these hinges every day for years to come. These areas must be perfectly smooth and precisely shaped to ensure that the door will swing easily and quietly. The process is the same, but each piece is slightly different. Not mass-produced uniformity, but the subtle variations that mark handcrafted work. The second hinge will match the first in function and overall appearance, but it will have its own character, its own small details that make it unique. He uses specialized tools, small files, and burnishers that can reach into tight spaces and create the exact surface finish needed for smooth operation. The repetitive sounds, the ring of hammer on anvil, the whoosh of the bellows, the gentle hiss of hot metal create a kind of trance state that quiets the mind and soothes the spirit. Time seems to slow and stretch, each moment expanding to contain the full richness of the experience. They should be something that brings pleasure to the eye as well as serving their practical purpose. Each hammer blow is precisely placed, each heating carefully controlled, each cooling timed to achieve the exact properties needed. The sounds from the village fade away as people settle into sleep, leaving only the gentle symphony of the forge and the craftsman's tools. And fits, making small adjustments with the patience of someone who knows that quality cannot be rushed. Each step is performed with the same care and attention as the first, creating a matched pair that will work together in perfect harmony. The blacksmith's hands move with unconscious skill, guided by muscle memory and deep understanding of his craft. The abbey has waited 200 years for new hinges, he says with a smile. They can wait another hour for me to get these exactly right. The isolation feels comfortable rather than lonely, a peaceful separation from the world that allows for deep focus and contemplation. The blacksmith's concentration never wavers, but there's a relaxed quality to his focus, the deep calm of someone completely absorbed in meaningful work. But watching it happen again, you notice details you missed the first time, the way the metal seems to flow like thick honey when it is at the right temperature. The metal has its own personality, its own way of responding to heat and pressure. My job is to work with that personality, to guide it toward the shape I need while respecting its natural tendencies. It's a conversation between the craftsman and the material, a dance where both partners contribute to the final result. The subtle changes in color that indicate different stages of the heating process. The precise control the blacksmith exercises over every aspect of the transformation. The blacksmith has settled into the deep rhythm of his craft, his movements flowing with the unconscious grace that comes from years of practice. The workshop seems to breathe around him, the sounds and scents and warmth creating a cocoon of peaceful concentration. The knuckles of the hinge slide together with satisfying precision, and when he inserts a temporary pin, the joint moves smoothly and silently. A good hinge should be like a whisper, he says with satisfaction. Present when you need it, invisible when you don't. His movements are economical and precise, each stroke serving a specific purpose in the overall design. The hinge emerges from this final cooling, dark and strong, ready to serve faithfully for decades or even centuries. The blacksmith lifts the hinge from the oil, and you can see that it has transformed once again, now dark and hard, its surface bearing the subtle patterns created by the cooling process. The surface ripples slightly in the light from the forge, creating patterns that shift and flow like liquid gold. The blacksmith uses a hand drill, turning it slowly and steadily to create perfectly round holes that will accept the hand-forged screws he's prepared separately. Each hole is carefully positioned and sized, ensuring that the hinge will mount securely and align properly. He begins with files, using long, smooth strokes to remove any rough spots and to refine the curves and angles. The sound of the file on metal is rhythmic and soothing, a gentle rasping that speaks of patience and attention to detail. Too fast and the metal might crack. Too slow and it won't achieve the proper hardness. He checks the temperature of the oil in the quenching tub, dipping his finger briefly into the liquid and nodding with satisfaction. The color is crucial. Too dark and the metal won't harden properly. Too bright and it might crack during cooling. Years of experience have taught him to read these subtle variations in color and heat, to know instinctively when the moment is right. Steam rises from the surface of the oil, creating swirling patterns in the air that catch and reflect the light from the forge. The blacksmith holds the piece steady, ensuring even cooling, his experienced hands feeling for any signs of warping or cracking. The oil quench gives a different result than water, the blacksmith explains, his voice soft and focused. He returns the hinge to the forge for the final heating, watching carefully as the metal reaches the perfect temperature. The metal emerges from the forge, glowing like a small sun, and the blacksmith moves smoothly to the quenching tub. The sound is fascinating, a complex symphony of hissing, bubbling, and crackling, as the metal rapidly cools and contracts. After what seems like both an eternity and an instant, the sounds begin to subside. Now comes the tempering, he says, moving back toward the forge. He places the hinge on a clean section of the anvil and begins to heat it gently with a small torch. Each color represents a different temperature and a different balance of hardness and flexibility. The blacksmith explains, watching the colors flow across the metal surface like oil on water. When the color is exactly right, he quenches the piece again, this time more briefly. With the heat treatment complete, the blacksmith moves to the final phase of the work, the careful finishing that will transform the functional hinge into a thing of beauty. Each stroke of the file removes only a tiny amount of metal, but gradually the surface becomes smoother and more refined. The finishing work is just as important as the forging, he explains as he works. He switches to progressively finer files, then to abrasive stones that polish the metal to a smooth, lustrous finish. The blacksmith pays special attention to the pivot points where the hinge will move. As he works, he occasionally tests the fit of the parts, checking that everything moves as it should. The final step is the creation of the screw holes that will attach the hinge to the door and frame. With the first hinge complete, the blacksmith sets it aside and begins work on its mate. The creation of the second hinge follows the same careful process. But there's a different quality to the work now. You find yourself drawn deeper into the meditative quality of the work. The second piece of iron glows and transforms under the blacksmith's skilled hands, following the same journey from raw material to finished product. No two pieces are ever exactly the same, the blacksmith muses as he works. The second hinge takes shape with the same careful attention to detail as the first. As the evening progresses, the workshop grows quieter. The blacksmith pauses occasionally to check his work, holding pieces up to the light. Testing joints, the second hinge progresses through its stages of completion forging, shaping, heat treating, and finishing. The wool she spins tonight is special, dyed with madder root for deep red, woad for brilliant blue, and weld for sunny yellow. Tomorrow she will begin weaving a wedding cloak for young Sarah, the baker's daughter who will marry the cooper's son when the apple blossoms bloom. The cloak will tell a story in its patterns: roses for love, oak leaves for strength, intertwining vines for the binding of two lives into one. Every thread carries Meredith's blessing, every pattern holds her hopes for the young couple's happiness. The warm, inviting glow from the blacksmith's workshop at the end of the winding lane draws your attention like a beacon of comfort and craftsmanship. Unlike the bright, fierce light of daytime when the forge burns hot as a dragon's breath, its still warm master. It remembers the hammer's song and the smith's intention. When you work iron, you are not just shaping metal, you're re-putting part of your soul into something that will serve others long after you're gone. Each stone was placed by hands long stilled, fitted with care to create a path that has guided countless footsteps through generations. Some stones bear the smooth wear of centuries, polished by the passage of farmers heading to market, children running to play, lovers walking hand in hand under starlight just like this. That's the true magic of our craft. It is the song of the village itself, passed down through generations, a melody that binds the community together in ways deeper than words. The sound reminds you that this human settlement exists within a larger world, surrounded by forests where deer step delicately through moonbeams and foxes hunt with silent grace. The village and the wild exist in balance here, each respecting the other's place in the great tapestry of life. The melody she plays is new learned from a traveling minstrel who passed through last month, but she weaves into it threads of older songs, creating something that is both fresh and familiar, like a well-loved story told with new words. They are planning their future together, where they will build their cottage, how they will manage their small plot of land, what they will name their children when they come. He pauses to accept tribute in the form of scratches behind the ears from the baker, then continues his rounds, ensuring that all is well in his small kingdom. Their love is new but already deep, rooted in friendship that began in childhood and has grown into something that will sustain them through all the seasons of their lives. The miller's house beside it glows with warm light, and through its windows you can see the miller's wife kneading tomorrow's bread, her movements as rhythmic and practiced as her husband's work with grain. She shapes each loaf with care, knowing that her bread will nourish not just bodies but spirits, providing the staff of life that sustains the community. The boy's hands know wood as intimately as his father's know grain, understanding how each type of tree offers its own gifts to those who work with patience and respect. The oak for strength and endurance, the pine for its sweet scent and easy working, the cherry for its beautiful grain and rich color that deepens with age. The priest completed evening prayers an hour ago, but the building itself continues its vigil, a sanctuary always ready to offer comfort to troubled souls or shelter to those in need. Here lie the founders who first cleared this land and built the first rough shelters. There rest the heroes who defended the village in times of trouble, and beside them the quiet saints who served their neighbors with no thought of recognition or reward. The newest graves are tended with fresh flowers, while the oldest have become part of the landscape, their stones worn smooth by centuries of weather, their occupants remembered now only in the village's collective memory. The song speaks of seasons turning, of work shared and burdens lightened, of the simple joy found in a life lived in harmony with the earth and with one as neighbors. The church has anchored this community for 5 centuries, its stones laid by hands guided by faith and hope. Within its walls, generations have been baptized, married, and mourned. Its bells have called the faithful to prayer, warned of danger, and celebrated victories both great and small. Even in the growing darkness, you can make out the careful arrangement of plants, vegetables, and herbs mingled with flowers in a harmony that serves both body and soul. The distant lowing of cattle settling for the night, the soft splash of the mill, wheel turning in the stream that runs through the village's heart. The stream has powered the mill for 300 years, its waters grinding grain into flour, its steady rhythm marking time like a great clock that never needs winding. His hands, already skilled despite his youth, shape the wood into the form of a horse, complete with flowing mane and proud stance. This will be no rough plaything, but a work of art in miniature, crafted with the same attention to detail that he brings to his work on houses and furniture. The little girl watches with wide eyes, already imagining the adventures she and her wooden horse will share. This is old Henrik, the village's keeper of seeds and grower of the finest pumpkins anyone has ever seen. Beside him, the miller discusses the quality of this year's grain harvest, while the village priest listens with the patient attention of a man who knows that understanding his flock's daily concerns is as important as tending their spiritual needs. These are not grand conversations about kingdoms and wars, but the vital discussions of people whose lives are rooted in the rhythms of earth and season, seed and harvest, birth and death, and the endless renewal that connects all living things. The prancing pony has served travelers and locals alike for over 2 centuries. Its thick stone walls and heavy oak beams witness to countless stories, celebrations, and sorrows. Tonight, as most nights, it serves as the village's gathering place, where news is shared, friendships deepened, and the day's work celebrated with simple ale and simpler pleasures. His gnarled hands move among the plants with the sureness of long practice, checking for signs of pest or disease, harvesting the last of the summer squash before the first frost can claim them. Henrik's garden feeds not just his own family, but provides surplus for the widow Martha and her grandchildren, for the young couple struggling to establish their own household, for anyone in the village who finds themselves in need. Here grows the parsley that will flavor tomorrow's soup. There are the marigolds that will keep harmful insects from the precious tomatoes. Climbing roses frame doorways with their thorny embrace, their blooms long faded, but their hips now swelling with the promise of winter tea rich in healing virtue. Wrought with such care that each curve seems to flow like water frozen in iron. At 15, Willem has been learning the smith's trade for 3 years, and his arms now show the beginnings of the strength that will serve him all his life. He is being initiated into an ancient brotherhood, a tradition that stretches back to the first human who discovered that fire and will could transform raw earth into tools of civilization. He dreams of the day when he will have his own forge, his own anvil, his own mark to stamp on the iron he shapes. But for now, he is content to learn from Master Gareth, who is known throughout the region for his skill and his kindness to those who seek to learn. His massive hands, scarred by decades of sparks and burns, trace the metal with surprising gentleness. These hands have shaped thousands of horseshoes, countless nails, dozens of plowshares and scythes, but also delicate jewelry for brides, toys for children, and works of art that will outlast the man who made them. And the hammer rings against the anvil with the music of creation. Tonight the workshop glows with softer, more intimate light. The day's work is done, but the forge still holds its warmth, like a sleeping dragon breathing gently in its cave, dreaming of tomorrow's creations. Master Gareth stands before his anvil, not working, but simply contemplating the piece he completed today. A set of hinges for the new chapel door, Gareth's apprentice. Young Willem sweeps the workshop floor with methodical care, gathering the day's metal shavings and coal dust. Willem, Gareth says quietly, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom earned through years of patient work, come here and feel this iron. The boy sets aside his broom and approaches, extending his hand to touch the cooling metal. Aye, and it will hold that warmth for hours yet. Iron remembers the fire, lad. Willem nods solemnly, understanding that he is receiving more than instruction in metalwork. As you continue down the lane, the cobblestones beneath your feet tell their own stories. The cottage gardens you pass are marvels of practical beauty. In one garden, an elderly man tends his late-season vegetables by lantern light. Henrik hums as he works, the same tune Meredith was spinning to, though neither is aware of the other's music. A barn owl calls from somewhere in the darkness beyond the village, its voice a liquid note that seems to bless the peaceful scene. From the inn at the village's heart comes the sound of gentle laughter and the soft strumming of a lute. Inside, the innkeeper's daughter plays her lute while a handful of villagers listen with the appreciation of people who understand that music is not mere entertainment, but a necessity of the soul. The baker sits at his usual table, Flour still dusting his apron despite his wife's best efforts to clean him up before he left home. A young couple sits in the corner, hands intertwined on the scarred wooden table, speaking in whispers that carry the weight of shared dreams. The inn's cat, a massive orange tom named Courage for his legendary battles with the rats that once plagued the grain stores, patrols his domain with the dignity of a king surveying his realm. As you move past the inn, the sound of music fades into the general symphony of the evening, the whisper of wind through thatch. The mill itself stands silent now, its work done for the day, but even in darkness, it radiates the contentment of a building that serves its purpose well. Their eldest son, home from his apprenticeship with a carpenter in the next village, sits at the kitchen table carving a wooden toy for his youngest sister. The carpenter's trade runs in the family. The miller's father was a woodworker before he inherited the mill, and his skills have been passed down through the generations. Beyond the mill, the village church stands in quiet majesty, its bell tower reaching toward the star-filled sky like a finger pointing toward heaven. Tonight, the church is dark, except for the eternal flame that burns before the altar, a reminder that some lights never go out, some hopes never die. The churchyard surrounding the building tells the story of the village in names carved in stone. An ancient yew tree stands at the churchyard's heart, its massive trunk hollow with age, but its branches still green and strong. Local legend says this tree was already ancient when the first church was built, that it was sacred to the people who lived here before the current village was established. The same family names appear again and again across the centuries. The millers and bakers, the smiths and weavers, the coopers and carpenters whose descendants still practice the trades that gave their ancestors their names. This is a community with deep roots, where tradition is not a burden but a gift passed from one generation to the next. Built just 50 years ago when the village prospered enough to hire a proper teacher, it represents the community's commitment to ensuring that their children will have opportunities beyond those their parents knew, each carved with the initials of students who have moved on to their adult lives but who remember their time in this room as the foundation of everything they became. The walls are decorated with maps of the wider world, reminders that this peaceful village is part of a larger tapestry of human experience. He interviews the oldest residents, recording their memories before they are lost forever, weaving together the threads of individual lives into the larger story of the community. This work will be his gift to future generations, a reminder of where they came from and the struggles and triumphs that shaped their world. Connected by trade and travel, by stories and songs to places and people far beyond the horizon. Children are taught to thank the well for its gift before drawing water, and many adults still follow this custom, though they might laugh if asked why. Now it serves as home to the village's healer, wise woman Alara, whose knowledge of herbs and healing has served the community for 30 years. Her garden is a marvel of medicinal plants: willow for pain, chamomile for sleep, echinacea for fighting illness, and dozens of others whose properties she learned from her predecessor and from years of careful observation and experimentation. By the time she finishes binding his arm with willow bark tea from there, Tom's father can watch over his charges and spot any danger that might threaten them: wolves from the deep forest, thieves who might try to steal valuable animals, or simply the everyday hazards that face creatures who depend on human protection for their survival. And comfrey salve, Tom is standing straighter, proud of his injury as a badge of honor rather than ashamed of his tears, and needs at a glance, understands their complex social relationships and individual personalities. She has caught the eye of the blacksmith's apprentice in their courtship, follows the gentle patterns established by countless generations before them, walks in the evening when work is done. The cooper's craft is essential to the village. As prosperity, his barrels store the grain that feeds the community through winter, hold the ale that makes celebrations possible, and transport goods to markets in distant towns. He shapes each stave with loving care, knowing that this barrel will be used for generations of family celebrations, that his children. Tools hang in neat rows on the walls, each one shaped by use to fit perfectly in the cooper's hands, each one representing years of accumulated skill and knowledge. The craft of coopering is dying out in many places, replaced by cheaper containers made in distant factories. But here in this village, candles are extinguished one by one, fires banked to hold their warmth until morning. Children tucked into beds with whispered prayers and gentle songs. The shepherd will check his flock in the dark hours before sunrise, ensuring that all is well with the creatures in his care. He is the village's guardian in the vulnerable hours of darkness, the one who stands between the sleeping community and whatever dangers the night might hold. Children dream of adventures in magical forests, of dragons defeated and treasures found, of growing up to be heroes in their own right. Adults dream of good harvests and healthy families, of problems solved and hopes fulfilled, of the simple satisfactions that make life worth living. The elderly dream of the past and the future intertwined, of loved ones gone but not forgotten, of wisdom passed on to eager young hands. His presence allows others to rest peacefully, knowing that someone watches over them while they surrender to sleep's embrace. The priest will ring the bell for morning prayers, calling the faithful to begin another day with gratitude and hope. The sounds of human activity fade, replaced by the natural symphony of night, the rustle of small creatures in the hedgerows, the distant call of an owl, the whisper of wind through the great oak trees that shelter the village from winter storms. The old ways persist because they produce better results and because the community values the connection between maker and user. These dreams will shape tomorrow's reality, inspiring the work that builds the future, the choices that determine the community's path forward. In sleep, the village renews itself, gathering strength for another day of the patient, persistent work that sustains human civilization. And grandchildren will drink from vessels he is creating with his own hands. The weaver who spins thread, understanding precisely how the finished cloth will be used. The blacksmith who forges tools with intimate knowledge of the hands that will wield them. This is not mere economic exchange, but a web of relationships that makes each person's work meaningful and connects individual effort to community well-being. Each barrel is a masterpiece of engineering, its curved staves fitted together with such precision that they will hold liquid without a single nail or screw. Conversations that grow deeper and more meaningful with each passing week. The gradual recognition that they are meant to build a life together. The lambs born this spring have grown strong and healthy, their wool thick and clean, ready for the autumn shearing that will provide the raw material for Meredith's spinning and weaving. This cycle of growth and harvest, of taking and giving back, connects every aspect of village life in an intricate web of mutual dependence and support. His border collie, Moss, is his constant companion and partner, a dog whose intelligence and loyalty make him worth 3 human helpers. Together, they move the flock from pasture to pasture, following patterns established over generations, ensuring that the land is not overgrazed and that the sheep have access to the best grass and cleanest water. Some traditions persist not because they are understood, but because they feel right, connecting the present to a past that lives on in gesture and ritual. This open space serves many purposes: market square on trading days, gathering place for festivals. She is known throughout the village for her skill with preserving food, her root cellar, stocked with vegetables that will last through the winter, her pantry filled with jams and pickles that add variety and nutrition to the cold season diet. Her knowledge, like that of all the village women, represents generations of accumulated wisdom about how to make the most of what the earth provides. He fell from a tree while retrieving a lost lamb, and his mother sent him to Alara for treatment. The wise woman examines the injury with gentle hands, determines that it is sprained but not broken, and begins the process of healing that involves not just herbal remedies but comfort, reassurance, and the kind of attention that makes a frightened child feel safe and cared for. And celebrations, playground for children, and commons where all villagers can bring their animals to graze. She is preparing remedies for winter's ailments, brewing tinctures and grinding powders, filling jars with the concentrated essence of summer's healing plants. Her work is part science, part art, and part intuition developed through decades of caring for her neighbors' bodies and spirits. An ancient stone well stands at its center, its water sweet and cold, drawn from springs deep in the earth. The schoolmaster, a learned man from the great city who chose to make his life in this quiet place, has taught 2 generations of village children to read and write, to cipher and think, to question and dream. Some say they are protective charms placed by the village's founders. Others believe they mark this as a sacred place from times before memory. Whatever their origin, they serve now as a reminder that this spot has been important to human community for longer than anyone can remember. Master Edmund works late most nights, preparing lessons for tomorrow or corresponding with other teachers and scholars, maintaining the connections that keep him current with new ideas and methods. He believes passionately that education is not about filling empty vessels with facts, but about kindling fires of curiosity that will burn throughout his students' lives. Whether or not the legend is true, the tree serves as a bridge between past and present, its roots deep in earth that has nourished countless generations, its branches reaching toward a future it will likely outlive. As you walk among the graves, reading the names and dates by moonlight, you are struck by the continuity they represent. A night-blooming jasmine planted beside the church door releases its perfume into the air, adding its sweetness to the complex bouquet of the evening. This jasmine was planted by the current priest's predecessor, a gentle man who believed that beauty was as necessary to the human spirit as bread was to the body. He filled the churchyard with flowering plants that would provide color and fragrance throughout the growing season, creating a garden that serves as a living prayer, a testament to the glory of creation. The village school stands next to the church, a newer building, but one that already shows signs of becoming as integral to the community as its older neighbor. Through the school's windows, you can see the neat rows of desks. The schoolmaster's house adjoins the school, and light still burns in his study window. His current project is a history of the village, compiled from church records, family stories, and his own careful observations. The village green spreads before you like a carpet of silver in the moonlight, its grass kept short by the sheep that graze here during the day. Around the well, worn smooth by countless hands, are carved symbols whose meaning has been lost to time. The well has never run dry, even in the worst droughts, leading some to whisper that it is blessed by powers older and deeper than human understanding. On the far side of the green stands the village's oldest building, a stone house that predates even the church. Alara's house glows with gentle light, and the scent of drying herbs drifts from her workroom. A soft knock at her door interrupts her work, and she opens it to find young Tom the shepherd's son, cradling his arm and trying not to cry. As she works, Alara tells Tom stories of other brave shepherds who face dangers to protect their flocks, weaving his small adventure into the larger tapestry of courage and responsibility that defines his calling. The shepherd's cottage sits on the hill above the village, positioned to give the best view of the surrounding pastures where the sheep graze. The shepherd's life is solitary but not lonely. He knows each of his sheep individually, can tell their moods tonight. The sheep rest peacefully in their fold, protected by stone walls and the shepherd's vigilance. The shepherd's wife tends a small garden beside their cottage, growing vegetables that can thrive in the thin soil of the hillside. Their daughter, barely 16, helps with both the sheep and the household, learning the skills she will need when she establishes her own home. As you make your way back toward the village center, you pass the cooper's workshop, where barrel staves lean against the walls like wooden soldiers at rest. The cooper's son, the young man who will marry the baker's daughter, works late by candlelight, putting the finishing touches on a special barrel that will hold the ale for his own wedding feast. The workshop smells of oak and ash, of wood shavings, and the linseed oil used to seal the finished barrels. The village's prosperity is built on such connections, the farmer who grows grain, knowing exactly who will eat the bread made from it. As the night deepens, the village settles into the peaceful rhythm of sleep, but the village never truly sleeps. The baker will rise before dawn to begin the day's bread, his ovens warming while the rest of the community still dreams. The night watchman makes his rounds, checking that doors are secure and fires are safely banked, carrying his lantern like a small star through the darkened streets. In the houses you pass, dreams unfold behind closed shutters. The village dreams collectively, its sleeping minds connected by shared experiences and common hopes. As you reach the end of your evening walk, you pause to look back at the village spread before you like a jewel set in velvet darkness. Each glowing window represents a life lived with purpose and dignity, a family bound together by love and mutual support, a household that contributes its unique gifts to the larger community. There are disagreements and disappointments, sorrows and struggles, the full range of experiences that come with being human. But there is also something that has been lost in many places, a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than oneself, of having a role to play in the great ongoing story of human community. The sight fills you with a deep sense of peace. Some of those communities have vanished, leaving only ruins to mark their passing, of safety found in the embrace of family and community of dreams that will carry the young one through the night and into tomorrow's possibilities. It is a song as old as humanity itself, yet fresh as each new voice that carries it forward. A melody that connects this moment to all the moments that came before and all those yet to come. Others have grown into great cities that sprawl across the landscape like living organisms. But the ancient dream of living in harmony with each other and with the earth is not just a fantasy, but an achievable reality for those with the wisdom and will to pursue it. The building welcomes you with its sturdy frame of honey-colored stone quarried from the nearby hills, thick wooden beams darkened by age and weather to the color of rich chocolate. The embers crackle gently, sounding like rain on autumn leaves or pages turning in an ancient, beloved book. Somewhere in the wooden rafters above, a dove coos softly to its mate while the distant murmur of the village drifts toward sleep. The wood is smooth beneath your palm, polished by countless hands that have passed this way before you. You wonder about those hands, the apprentices who once stood where you stand now. Nervous, I don't believe we've met. I'm Gareth, the smith who works here. His eyes a deep brown flecked with gold steady you with the same careful attention he might give to a piece of metal. He is considering for a project, not judgmental. You watch as he sets his satchel on a wooden bench near the wall and begins the evening ritual of checking his tools, ensuring everything is in its proper place for tomorrow's work. His hands move with the unconscious precision of long habit, touching each tool briefly as if greeting an old friend, but assessing, trying to understand what you're made of and what you might become. Took it over from my master, old Henrik, when he decided his bones were too creaky for the work anymore. There's the practical side of coarse horseshoes and nails, hinges and latches, all the thousand small things that keep a village running. But then there's the art of it, the challenge of taking raw iron and coaxing it into something beautiful as well as useful. Yet for all its delicacy, there is an underlying strength to it, a sense that this flower will bloom forever, untouched by seasons or time. He worked it for 30 years before that, and his master before him for 25. Just a curved piece of iron to protect a horse's hoof. He tells you about the time he forged a set of gates for the Lord's manor, each bar twisted into spirals that caught the light like captured sunbeams. He describes the delicate work of creating jewelry, silver and gold, requiring different techniques than iron, more patience and a gentler touch. But every horse is different, every hoof unique. The shoe has to fit perfectly or the horse will go lame. So you watch the animal, study how it moves, feel the shape of each hoof. Then you heat your iron and begin the dance hammer and anvil, fire and metal, until you've created something that's exactly right for that one horse and no other. This anvil, he reaches out to pat the massive iron block, has been singing the song of creation for nearly a century, and Ager, the journeyman who came seeking work or wisdom, the customers who brought broken tools and left with them made whole again. Not that I make many these days, mind you. The village has little need for swords and spears, thank the gods. But occasionally a traveling knight will stop by, needing repairs to his blade or a new dagger. That's work that carries weight beyond the metal itself. A weapon is made to take life or preserve it, and that responsibility sits heavy on a smith's shoulders. You're having a conversation with it. The iron tells you what it wants to become, and your job is to listen and guide it there. Force it, and it'll fight you every step of the way. Work with it, and it'll surprise you with what it's willing to do. Gareth nods, a small smile creasing the corners of his eyes. Unwrapping it carefully, he reveals a delicate iron rose, its petals so finely wrought they seem almost to tremble in the ember light. Made this for my wife on our wedding day 35 years ago. Took me 3 tries to get it right. Iron doesn't want to be delicate, you see. It wants to be strong and sturdy. But with patience and the right touch, you can convince it to be both. It has that effect on people. There's something about a forge at rest that speaks to the soul, I think. The evening's still young, and I find I do some of my best thinking when the day's work is done and the forge is quiet. The stone floor is worn smooth in places where generations of smiths have stood, and the walls bear the patina of years of smoke and heat. The silence between you is comfortable, filled with the gentle sounds of the settling evening and the soft whisper of the banked coals. After a moment, he speaks again, but everything is scrupulously clean and organized. This is clearly the workspace of a master craftsman, someone who understands that respect for one's tools and workspace is fundamental to good work. The potential for creation sleeping in the coals, waiting for the right moment to wake. A dog barks once, then falls silent. A wooden shutter creaks closed against the night air, and a mother calls softly to her child to come in from play. Through the gap, you glimpse the warm interior where the forge rests, carefully banked for the night. There's the clean, metallic smell of iron and steel, honest and strong, the earthy scent of coal and charcoal, but speaks of fire and transformation. And underneath it all, the comforting aroma of well-seasoned oak and ashwood. Beneath these familiar notes lies something indefinable yet unmistakable, the smell of honest work, sweat and effort transformed into beauty and utility. Deep red embers pulse gently like a sleeping heartbeat, casting dancing shadows across the stone walls. Tools hang in neat rows along the walls, their metal surfaces catching the ember light in soft gleams that wink at you like old friends bidding goodnight. His hair is silver white, pulled back in a simple queue, and his clothes speak of practical comfort rather than fashion. A linen shirt open at the throat, leather breeches worn soft with age, and boots that have walked many miles on many different roads. But it's his hands that draw your attention, broad and strong, marked with the small scars that speak of a lifetime spent working with fire and metal, yet gentle in their movements as he adjusts the leather satchel slung across his shoulder. Ivy climbs one wall in graceful cascades, its leaves rustling in the evening breeze like whispered secrets between old friends. But a few, like this village, have found the secret of sustainable prosperity, the understanding that true wealth lies not in what can be extracted from the earth, but in what can be built with human hands and hearts, working together in harmony. Beside it, a wooden stump worn smooth by daily use serves as the blacksmith's seat. Scattered around it lie the tools of the trade, hammers and tongs, files and punches, each placed with the care of a craftsman who knows that good tools form the foundation of good work. They have learned the ancient wisdom that cooperation is stronger than competition, that sharing multiplies rather than diminishes abundance, that the best way to ensure one's own future is to invest in the future of the whole community. A recognition that you have witnessed something precious and rare, a human community that has found the secret of living in harmony with itself and with the natural world that sustains it. When tradition and innovation work together, when the needs of the present are balanced with responsibility to the future, the village will continue its quiet work long after you are gone, its people rising each day to tend their gardens and practice their crafts, to raise their children and care for their elders, to maintain the delicate balance that makes their way of life possible. This is not a perfect place. No human community ever is. The village endures because its people understand that individual well-being and community health are inseparable, that the prosperity of one depends on the prosperity of all. As you turn to leave, carrying with you the memory of this peaceful evening, you understand that you have been given a gift, a glimpse of what human life can be when it is lived with intention and care. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, the same stars that have watched over countless human communities throughout history. The night air carries one last gift as you walk away, the sound of a lullaby drifting from an open window, a mother's voice singing her child to sleep with words that speak of love that endures. In this song, in this village, in this perfect evening of peace and contentment, you have found something that the world desperately needs. Proof that another way is possible, that human beings can create communities of beauty and meaning. You approach the workshop slowly, your feet silent on the soft earth path bordered by wild roses and honeysuckle. The large wooden doors, carved with simple but elegant patterns, stand slightly ajar. The massive anvil sits solid and patient at the center of the space, its surface polished smooth by years of faithful service and gleaming like dark water under the gentle light. As you step closer to the doorway, drawn by the warmth and peace flowing from within, evening settles over the workshop like a comfortable blanket. The air here is warm and rich with a distinctive sense of the blacksmith's ancient trade. You pause at the threshold, your hand resting on the worn wooden doorframe. A soft footstep behind you makes you turn. An elderly man approaches along the same path you've just traveled, his gait steady despite his obvious age. "Good evening," he says, his voice carrying the warm roughness of someone who has spent years calling instructions over the ring of hammer on anvil. You introduce yourself, explaining that you were drawn by the peaceful atmosphere of the workshop. He moves past you into the workshop, his movements economical and sure. "Would you like to come in?" he asks without looking up from his work. You step across the threshold, and immediately the workshop seems to embrace you. Gareth settles onto the wooden stump beside the anvil and gestures for you to take a seat on a nearby bench. "I've been working this forge for nigh on 40 years now," he says, his gaze moving lovingly over the familiar space. You ask him about his work, and his face lights up with the enthusiasm of someone who has found his true calling. "Ah, where do I begin?" He rises and moves to a shelf along the wall, returning with a small object wrapped in soft leather. The rose is exquisite, each petal individually shaped and textured, the stem gracefully curved with tiny thorns that look sharp enough to draw blood. "The secret," Gareth continues, rewrapping the rose with the same care he showed in revealing it, "is understanding that you're not fighting the metal." He returns the rose to its place and settles back onto his stump. "Take horseshoes, for instance. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? The evening deepens around you as Gareth talks, his voice weaving stories of his craft like a bard spinning tales of heroes and adventures. But the most challenging work, he says, his voice dropping to a more serious tone, is weapons. He pauses, staring into the glowing coals as if seeing something there that you cannot. I remember the first sword I ever made. I was still an apprentice, barely 18, and full of pride at being trusted with such important work. Folded the steel 7 times, quenched it in oil blessed by the village priest, polished it until it gleamed like starlight. The truth is, most of my work brings joy. Children's faces when they see the iron toys I make for the Harvest Festival. Gareth grins, the expression transforming his weathered face. Right then. We'll start simple, a nail, perhaps, or a small hook. Nothing fancy, but it'll give you a feel for the work. A young woman's smile when her sweetheart commissions a delicate bracelet. This is good iron, he says, holding it up for your inspection. Gareth takes it back and places one end in the coals, working the bellows with his foot to bring the fire to life. The coals glow brighter, and soon the iron begins to change color first, a dull red, then brighter, moving through orange toward yellow. He draws it out longer and thinner, then uses the horn of the anvil to bend it into a hook shape. The movements look effortless, but you can see the strength required in the set of his shoulders, the careful control in every gesture. When he pulls it out, the metal has turned a dark gray-black. The heat color's gone, but the shape permanent. The heated iron glows like a captive star, beautiful and dangerous. We need to put a point on this hook, and that requires more delicate work. The village has settled into nighttime quiet, with only the occasional sound of a closing door or a dog's distant bark to break the peaceful silence. When the iron is hot again, he brings it back to the anvil and begins working with smaller, more precise hammer blows, gradually tapering the end to a sharp point. It's not often I get such an attentive audience for my work. Most folks only see the finished product, not the process that creates it. There's always something interesting happening in a blacksmith shop, and I enjoy the company. The work can be solitary sometimes, and it's good to share it with someone who appreciates the craft. Gareth positions it carefully and picks up a hammer, not the massive sledgehammer you might expect, but a tool perfectly balanced for precision work. You remain in the workshop, surrounded by the tools, an atmosphere of centuries of craftsmanship. The banked coals still glow softly, and the metal surfaces catch their light in gentle gleams. The tools hang in their appointed places, ready for tomorrow's work. The anvil sits patient and solid, bearing the marks of countless projects. The forge rests quietly, its coals holding the promise of future creations. Everything speaks of continuity, of traditions maintained and skills preserved across the generations. As he prepares to leave, he turns back to you one more time. The path back to the village is lit by starlight and the soft glow from cottage windows. Massive oak beams support the ceiling, their surfaces darkened by decades of smoke and heat, each one hand-hewn by craftsmen whose names have been forgotten but whose work endures. The walls are thick stone, quarried from the nearby hills when this building was first raised 3 generations ago. Between the stones, mortar mixed with horsehair still holds firm, a testament to the thoroughness of its builders. You've glimpsed the satisfaction that comes from making something with your own hands, from taking raw materials and transforming them into objects of beauty and utility. Each tool has its place, marked by the shadow of its absence on the soot-darkened stone. This is not mere organization but reverence, the kind of respect that comes from understanding that these implements are extensions of the craftsman's will, partners in the ancient dance of creation. That the workshop remains alive in your memory, a place where fire and iron dance together in the ancient rhythm of creation. Its bellows, made of leather that has been oiled and maintained with religious devotion, rest beside it like sleeping giants. The anvil, positioned at precisely the right height for Thomas's frame, bears the scars of 10,000 hammer blows, its surface polished to a mirror shine by the constant friction of hot metal, where skilled hands and patient hearts transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, one hammer blow at a time. It's a reminder that in our increasingly complex world, there's still value in the simple, honest work of the craftsman work that connects us to our materials, our tools, and ultimately to each other. Behind you, the workshop settles into nighttime quiet, but you carry with you the memory of its warmth and the wisdom of its master craftsman. There's something profound about the transformation of raw materials into useful objects, something that speaks to fundamental human needs and desires. The blacksmith's craft is one of the oldest professions, dating back to the dawn of civilization, yet it remains as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. The heat wraps around you like a favorite blanket warmed by the fire, and you notice how the ember light dances gently on the stone walls. It creates patterns that shift and flow like water, or like the dreams that come just before sleep, ever-changing yet somehow eternal and peaceful. Not too much carbon, so it won't be brittle, but enough to take a good edge if needed. Feel the weight of it. This craft has been passed down through generations like a treasured family recipe, each master adding his own knowledge to the accumulated wisdom of centuries. This is the scent of human ingenuity and perseverance, the transformation of raw materials into objects of beauty and function through skill, patience, and love. From raw iron to finished product in less than an hour, the metal is still warm from the quenching, and you can feel the slight roughness of the hammer marks, evidence of the human hands that shaped it. There's wisdom in that philosophy that extends far beyond metalworking, the recognition that the best results come from working with materials and circumstances rather than against them. Simple enough in concept, but it takes years to develop the eye and hand coordination to do it well. Such a simple object, yet it represents hours of learning, years of practice, and generations of accumulated knowledge passed down from master to apprentice. Every curve and angle was deliberately chosen, every hammer blow carefully placed. It's a small masterpiece of functional art, created by someone who understands both the technical requirements of his craft and the deeper satisfaction that comes from making something useful and beautiful. A reminder of your visit, and perhaps an inspiration to try the craft yourself someday. The satisfaction of a farmer when I repair his plow just in time for spring planting. That's the real reward of this work being part of the community, helping people live their lives a little easier. My wife will be wondering what's kept me so late, and she has supper waiting. He pauses in his work to look at you. Sometimes the workshop is at its most peaceful after the smith has gone home for the day. You learn to read the colors, to know exactly when the iron is ready to work. Beautiful piece of work, if I do say so myself. They flare briefly, casting dancing shadows on the walls before settling back to their steady glow. Sparks fly in tiny arcs of light, and the iron begins to flatten and spread under the hammer's kiss. Its face is perfectly flat and hard, giving you a solid surface to work against. But see these other features? He pauses to point out the various parts of the anvil, the horn for bending curves, the hardy hull for holding specialized tools, the step for making right angles. Each one serves a purpose, gives you different ways to shape the metal. Gareth works with a rhythm that seems almost musical, each blow placed exactly where it needs to be, shaping the metal with an economy of motion that speaks of decades of practice. Would you like to see how it's done? I mean, really see, not just watch from the doorway. His expression grows somber. The young lord never came back from that war. His squire returned the sword to his family, and they brought it to me to ask if I could melt it down and make something else from the metal. They couldn't bear to look at it, knowing it had failed to protect their son, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. It sits in my private collection now, a reminder that every piece we create carries the hopes and fears of those who commission it. The weight of his words settles over the workshop like a blanket. You begin to understand that smithing is far more than just shaping metal. It's about understanding people, their needs and dreams, their fears and aspirations. Every piece that leaves this forge carries a part of the smith's soul along with the customer's hopes. But listen to me, going on about dark things, Gareth says, shaking off his melancholy mood. He rises and moves to the forge, using a long iron poker to stir the coals gently. Your heart quickens with excitement, and you nod eagerly. He moves with practiced efficiency, selecting a piece of iron rod from a rack along the wall. The metal is heavier than you expected and cool to the touch. Temperature's everything, he explains as he works. Too cool, and the metal won't move properly. When the metal reaches the right heat, he pulls it from the fire with long tongs and carries it to the anvil. The first blow rings out clear and true, the sound echoing off the stone walls. The anvil is your partner in this dance, he says between hammer blows. As you watch, the simple iron rod transforms under his skilled hands. Now comes the tricky part, he says, returning the piece to the fire. The finished hook is a thing of simple beauty, functional and elegant, with clean lines and perfect proportions. And there you have it, he says, holding up the hook for your inspection. He hands you the hook, and you are surprised by how satisfying it feels to hold something that was created right before your eyes. Keep it, Gareth says when you try to hand it back. The evening has grown fully dark while you watched him work, and through the open doors you can see stars beginning to appear in the clear sky. I should be getting home, Gareth says, beginning to bank the coals for the night. You thank him for the demonstration and the gift, and he waves off your gratitude with a smile. The pleasure was mine. He gathers his tools and banks the fire properly, ensuring it will hold enough heat to make starting easier tomorrow morning. If you're ever passing through again, don't hesitate to stop by. With that, he shoulders his satchel and heads out into the night, his footsteps fading along the path toward the village. Sitting alone in the peaceful space, you reflect on what you've witnessed. You think about Gareth's words regarding the conversation between smith and metal, the idea that creation is a collaborative process rather than an act of domination. The hook in your hand serves as a tangible reminder of the evening's lessons. As you finally prepare to leave, you take one last look around the workshop. You step out into the cool night air, the iron hook still warm in your palm. The experience has changed something in your understanding of work and creation. The village sleeps peacefully around you as you make your way home. You step through the doorway now, crossing the threshold from the cool evening air into the workshop's warm embrace. The workshop stretches before you, a cathedral of craft and dedication. Along the walls, tools hang in careful arrangement, hammers of every size and weight, tongs shaped for specific purposes, files worn smooth by countless hours of use. The forge itself dominates the center of the space, built of fire brick and lined with clay that has been baked hard by years of intense heat. In the far corner of the workshop, moving with the quiet grace that comes only from long practice, is the blacksmith himself. His name is Thomas Whitmore, and he has worked at this forge for more than 20 years. His shoulders are broad and powerful, his forearms thick with muscle earned through honest labor. His hair, once the color of autumn wheat, has begun to show threads of silver at the temples, and his beard, neatly trimmed, bears the same distinguished markings of a man who has lived fully and worked hard. He learned his trade first as a wide-eyed boy apprentice, eager to please and quick to learn, and now practices it with the steady confidence of a master craftsman whose reputation extends throughout the region and beyond. The earthy richness of coal smoke, the sweet fragrance of burning hardwood, and underneath it all the deeper notes of leather oil and honest sweat. He knows every stone in the floor, every beam in the ceiling, every tool on the wall. It is a ceremony as old as metalworking itself, passed down from master to apprentice through generations uncounted. Each action has meaning, each gesture carries the weight of tradition. This workshop is more than his workplace. It is his sanctuary, his temple, the place where he communes with the ancient spirits of his craft. This morning brought a commission from the Millennium Bands for his grinding stones, work that required precision and strength in equal measure. These required steel of the finest quality, heated and cooled with exacting precision to achieve the proper hardness. Thomas had explained as best he could, though he knew that much of what he did could not be put into words. How do you describe the sound that properly heated steel makes when struck? How do you explain the color changes that indicate temperature, the subtle shifts in hue that can only be seen by eyes trained through years of observation? Tomorrow's work is planned and prepared, iron bars selected and set aside, coal arranged for easy access, tools positioned for efficiency. The stone walls, which have absorbed warmth throughout the day, now release it slowly, creating gentle currents of air that stir the hanging tools and make them chime softly against each other. There is music here for those who know how to hear it, the whisper of cooling metal, the soft crackle of banked coals, the gentle creaking of wooden beams as they adjust to the changing temperature. This is the lullaby of craft, the evening song of honest labor. It is a peaceful sound like distant bells calling the faithful to evening prayer. The boy shows promise, real promise, but he is still learning to listen to the metal's voice. The metal will sense your frustration and resist you. Without us, there would be no plows to till the fields, no horseshoes to carry men. This was not merely a way to earn bread and shelter, but a sacred trust, a responsibility to maintain the skills and knowledge that kept the world functioning. Every piece he forged, from the humblest nail to the finest blade, was a contribution to the great work of human civilization. And goods across the land, no nails to hold buildings together, no tools for other craftsmen to ply their trades. We are the foundation upon which all other work rests. His movements are economical and purposeful, each gesture the result of thousands of repetitions that have worn the actions into his very bones. His wife, Margaret, will have kept his supper warm, and she will listen with patient interest as he describes the day's work. She understands the importance of his craft, having grown up in a family of metalworkers herself. Her father had been a tinsmith, and her brothers continue the family tradition in the next county. Approach it with patience, with respect, and it will yield to your touch like a willing partner. Margaret understood the demands of the craft, the long hours, and the physical toll it took. She tended his injuries without complaint, prepared the special foods that helped maintain his strength, and managed their household with the same precision that Thomas brought to his metalwork. Today he had grown frustrated with a piece of iron that refused to bend to his will, striking it harder and harder until Thomas had to intervene. The anvil bears dents from his work, and the forge itself was built to his specifications. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between hammer blows, Thomas can almost hear Henrik's voice offering guidance, sharing the wisdom of a lifetime spent in service to the craft. Thomas moves to tend them, trimming wicks and adding fresh tallow where needed. Through them, Thomas can see the first stars appearing in the clear sky, their light cold and distant compared to the warm glow of his forge. The village beyond is settling into sleep, smoke rising from chimneys as families gather around their hearths for the evening meal. Light is precious, especially in winter when the days are short and the nights are long. Every flame must be maintained with care, every wick kept at the proper length to ensure clean burning. This preparation is as important as the work itself, for a craftsman who begins each day in chaos will produce chaos in his work. Too soft, and the blades would not hold their edge. Too hard, and they would shatter at the first stress. The balance point between these extremes could only be found through experience, through the accumulated wisdom of years spent learning to read the subtle signs that metal gives to those who know how to listen. The iron had to be heated to exactly the right temperature, neither too hot nor too cold, then shaped with careful hammer blows that compressed the metal's grain and gave it strength. All apprentices went through this phase, this struggle between will and wisdom. Thomas remembered his own early days, the bruised knuckles and bent nails that marked his learning. His master, old Henrik, had been patient with him, as Thomas now tried to be patient with William. Each band was a perfect circle, sized to fit with tolerances measured in fractions of inches. But his anger was rare and always justified, and his teaching was thorough and kind. He had taken Thomas in when the boy was barely 12, an orphan with nowhere else to go, and had given him not just a trade, but a purpose, a place in the world. At first, you see only marks on paper, but gradually, the marks become letters, the letters become words, and the words become meaning. The metal speaks to those who learn its language. The fire that has burned throughout the day must be preserved, its heart kept alive through the night so that tomorrow's work can begin without delay. The tongues are oiled at their joints and hung in their proper places. Files are cleaned with wire brushes, their teeth cleared of metal filings that could mar tomorrow's work. This maintenance is not mere housekeeping, but a form of respect, an acknowledgement that these tools are partners in creation and deserve to be treated with care. He arranges the coals with careful precision, creating channels for air to flow while ensuring that the heat remains concentrated at the core. Over this, he spreads a layer of fine coal dust, then dampens it slightly with water from a leather bucket. The result is a seal that will hold the fire's breath until morning, when the bellows will wake it to roaring life once more. These scents have soaked into the very stones of the workshop, creating an atmosphere that speaks of dedication, tradition, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from work well done. These are hands that have shaped thousands of horseshoes, forged countless nails and hinges, and created works of art that will outlast their maker by centuries. They are scarred by tiny burns and cuts beneath the day's grime, already marked by tomorrow's inevitable tasks pig. Iron cast in distant furnaces and transported here by wagon over roads that test both cargo and carrier. There are ingots of steel, precious and expensive, reserved for the finest work sword blades for the local lord, tools for the master carpenter, delicate instruments for the village physician. Yet they possess a sensitivity that allows him to judge the temperature of metal by touch alone, to feel the precise moment when iron becomes malleable enough to bend to his will. Thomas stands just over 6 feet tall, his frame built by years of swinging heavy hammers and wrestling with stubborn iron, his hands, strong and sure from years of wielding hammer and tongs, move with a kind of unconscious precision that comes only from patient repetition, each movement economical and purposeful. The workshop holds the accumulated treasures of his craft bars of iron in various grades, some soft and easily worked, others hard as stone and suitable only for cutting edges. Coals imported from distant mines rest in carefully maintained piles, each type chosen for its burning characteristics. Welsh coal for the hottest fires, local charcoal for delicate work, and seasoned hardwood for the gentle heat needed when tempering the finest steel. In wooden crates along the walls rest the raw materials of his trade, iron ore that still bears traces of the earth from which it came. The air itself tells stories. Layers of scent build upon each other like the rings of an ancient tree. The sharp tang of hot metal Thomas moves through this space with the familiarity of long habit, each step placed with unconscious precision. Tonight, as on every night for the past 20 years, he performs the ritual of closing. He begins with the forge, banking the coals with practiced movements. The tools receive his attention next. Each hammer is cleaned of scale and soot, its handle checked for cracks or wear. As he works, Thomas reflects on the day's accomplishments. The afternoon had been devoted to more delicate work, a set of surgical instruments for the village physician. The physician had watched the work with fascination, asking questions about the process. "It's like learning to read," Thomas had told the physician. The physician had nodded thoughtfully, understanding perhaps that there were forms of knowledge that could not be found in books. wisdom that lived only in the hands and hearts of craftsmen. As the evening deepens, Thomas continues his ritual. The workbench is cleared and cleaned, its surface wiped down with an oiled cloth. The workshop grows quieter as the day's heat begins to dissipate. Thomas pauses in his work to listen to these sounds, to feel the rhythm of his workshop settling into rest. His thoughts turn to his apprentice, young William, who left hours ago to return to his family's cottage on the village outskirts. Anger has no place at the forge, Thomas had told him, his voice gentle but firm. The boy had nodded, but Thomas could see that the lesson had not yet taken root. It would in time. Henrik had been a giant of a man, with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could shake the rafters when he was moved to anger. A blacksmith, Henrik had told him on his first day, is a guardian of civilization. Those words had shaped Thomas's understanding of his calling. The workshop holds memories of Henrik in every corner. The old master's favorite hammer still hangs on the wall, its handle worn smooth by his grip. As he works, Thomas moves with the quiet grace that comes only from long practice, moving with the steady confidence of a master craftsman whose reputation extends throughout the region. The candles that have provided additional light throughout the evening begin to burn low, their flames dancing in the gentle air currents. The workshop's windows, small and set high in the walls, show the deepening darkness outside. Thomas's own cottage lies just beyond the workshop, connected by a covered walkway that allows him to move between home and work without exposure to weather. Their marriage had been arranged by their families, as was common, but it had grown into something deeper over the years. They had been blessed with 3 children, though only one had survived to adulthood. Their son, Robert, had shown no interest in following his father's trade, choosing instead to join the church. She wrote occasionally, her letters filled with news of her own children and the bustling life of commerce. Thomas treasured these letters, reading them by candlelight and imagining the world beyond his village, the great network of trade and craft that connected all communities. The ember light has dimmed to a soft glow that barely illuminates the stone walls, and the shadows have grown long and gentle. The air is warm and still, heavy with the sense of iron and wood and the lingering fragrance of the day's labor. He served now as a clerk to the bishop in the cathedral city, his quick mind and careful hand making him valuable in the world of letters and documents. Thomas runs his fingers over its surface, feeling for imperfections that his eyes might miss in the dim light. Long after his hands have stilled and his name is forgotten, the things he has made will continue to serve, silent witnesses to the skill and dedication of their maker. The metal is smooth and true, its curves flowing like water frozen in time. In this gentle light, the tools and materials take on an almost mystical quality, as if they are not mere objects but sleeping spirits waiting for tomorrow's awakening. The hammers seem to rest rather than simply hang. The anvil appears to crouch like a patient animal, and the iron bars stack themselves like slumbering giants. He pinches each flame carefully between his fingers, a skill learned in childhood when candles were precious and not to be wasted. At the threshold, he turns for one last look at his workshop, checking that all is secure and ready for the night. The banked forge glows like a sleeping dragon, its breath held until morning calls it back to life. The tools rest in their places, clean and ready for tomorrow's work. Behind him, the forge dreams of tomorrow's fire, and the tools rest in the confidence that they will soon wake to purpose once again. In the soft red light, everything takes on a dreamlike quality. His eyes linger on each familiar tool, each treasured possession, and the satisfaction shows in his face, the deep contentment of a craftsman who loves his work and takes pride in doing it well. Some are straight and simple, others curved and specialized. One pair worn smooth from decades of shaping horseshoes, another blackened from countless hours working with white-hot steel. His father had made several of these tools, and his grandfather before him. The workshop holds 3 generations of accumulated wisdom in iron and wood. The old man had built it to last centuries, using techniques learned from masters whose names were already legend. The village is almost completely quiet, with only the softest sounds breaking the silence, the hoot of an owl in the distance, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the far-off murmur of a stream flowing over stones. But as he stands there, other sounds emerge from the darkness, the subtle symphony of a village at rest. The fire pot, worn smooth by decades of coal and flame, sits ready for tomorrow's first fire. Beside it, the bellows waits like a sleeping giant, its leather sides patched and repatched, but still capable of breathing life into the coldest cools. The nearly full moon bathes everything in silver light, making the cobblestones gleam and transforming the thatched roofs into landscapes of shadow and light. There's the Great Bear, turning slowly around the North Star, and Orion the Hunter, his belt bright and clear in the autumn sky. From the gardens comes the sweet fragrance of night-blooming jasmine, planted by the village women who know its perfume is strongest after dark. The herb gardens add their own notes to the symphony of scents, lavender and rosemary, thyme and sage, all releasing their essence into the cooling air. Thomas learned their names and stories from his father, who learned them from his father before him. The knowledge passes down like the craft itself, from hand to hand, generation to generation. Thomas has always found peace in the night sky, in the vast sweep of stars that have watched over countless generations of craftsmen like himself. His grandfather used to tell him that the stars were the sparks from God's own forge, scattered across the heavens when he shaped the world. The hammers hang in perfect order by weight and purpose, from the delicate planishing hammer, no bigger than his thumb, to the great sledge that requires both hands and all his strength. Each scar tells a story, the deep gouge from when young apprentice William had dropped a red-hot bar, the circular burn from the time Thomas himself had been careless with a heated rivet. The baker, old Henrik, would already be asleep, but in a few hours he would rise to begin the day's bread, his movements as precise and practiced as Thomas's own work at the forge. The 2 men had grown up together, learned their trades in parallel, each becoming master of his craft through decades of patient practice. The wood has darkened with age and absorbed oil, becoming almost black in places, smooth as silk where hands have touched it most often. It's Magnus, the miller's old hound, probably dreaming of chasing rabbits through the grain fields. The sound carries clearly in the still air, and then fades into the gentle chorus of night insects beginning their evening songs. Crickets chirp from the gardens, their rhythm steady and hypnotic. Somewhere a nightingale tries a few experimental notes, then launches into full song, its voice pure and sweet in the darkness. Each has its place, each has its story. During the day, it bustles with activity, children playing, merchants hawking their wares, farmers bringing produce to market. But now it lies empty and peaceful, the stone still holding a hint of warmth from the day's sun. Thomas knows every stone, every slight dip and rise in the ancient roadway. He has walked this path thousands of times in all weather at all hours. A delicate iron rose, each petal hammered paper thin and shaped with infinite patience, sits beside a massive door hinge that could support a castle gate. The contrast speaks to the range of his craft, from the most delicate decorative work to the strongest functional pieces. Between them rests a small knife he forged for his daughter's 10th birthday, its handle wrapped in leather he tooled himself, the blade still sharp enough to split a hair. The tools seem to shimmer slightly, as if they're not quite solid, not quite real. The anvil becomes a dark mountain in the center of the space, solid and eternal. The very air seems to pulse gently with the rhythm of the sleeping coals. The materials wait in patient stacks, iron and steel and coal, the raw stuff of creation ready to be transformed by skill and fire. As each flame dies, the workshop grows a little dimmer, a little more intimate, like a room preparing for sleep. The iron latch, forged by his own hands years ago, clicks into place with a sound that speaks of security and rest. The sound was cast by smiths like Thomas, shaped by hands that understood the marriage of metal and music, form and function. It is a reminder that all crafts are connected, all skills interdependent, all workers part of the great human family that builds and maintains the world through dedication, knowledge, and love. The workshop settles into darkness, holding its breath until dawn brings the return of light and labor, fire and creation. The eternal dance of craft that has shaped human civilization since the first smith learned to bend metal to his will. There will be difficult commissions that push the boundaries of his ability, apprentices to teach and guide, and the endless small tasks that keep a community functioning. But tonight, there is only peace, the satisfaction of work well done, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing one's place in the great chain of human endeavor. Tomorrow, he will complete the work, and the hinge will take its place in service to the community, supporting the door through which generations will pass in worship and celebration. Thomas was proud of the boy's success, though he sometimes wondered who would carry on the family tradition when his own hands could no longer grip a hammer. This is his world, the place where he has found purpose and meaning, where the ancient traditions of his craft live on through his hands and heart. Their daughter Mary had married a merchant and moved to a distant town. The third child, little Anne, had been taken by fever in her second year. The loss had nearly broken Margaret, and Thomas had thrown himself into his work with desperate intensity, trying to forge away the pain. Time had softened the grief, but it never fully disappeared. Sometimes, in the quiet moments of evening, he could almost hear her laughter echoing in the workshop's corners. As he works, the workshop grows even more peaceful. The rhythm of his movements creates its own meditation. Each tool returned to its place, each surface cleaned and prepared for tomorrow's work, each small ritual performed with the same care, whether observed or not. This is the discipline of craft, the understanding that excellence lies not in grand gestures, but in the accumulation of small perfections. Thomas pauses to examine a piece he had been working on earlier, a decorative hinge for the church door, commissioned by the priest to replace one that had finally succumbed to age and weather. The work required both strength and delicacy, the ability to shape heavy iron into graceful curves while maintaining the structural integrity needed to support the massive oak door. The hinge is nearly complete, lacking only the final polishing and the installation of the pin that will allow it to function. This is the true reward of his craft, not the coins that change hands when work is completed, though those are necessary for survival, but the knowledge that his work will endure. The blacksmith moves now to extinguish the few candles that have been burning on his workbench. The final candle gutters and dies, leaving only the soft glow of the banked forge to illuminate the workshop. Thomas stands for a moment in the center of his domain, breathing in the familiar scents, listening to the quiet sounds of cooling metal and settling wood. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities to test his skill and expand his knowledge. He moves toward the door, his footsteps echoing softly in the stillness. With a final nod of satisfaction, Thomas steps through the doorway and closes the heavy wooden door behind him. In the distance, the village church bell tolls the hour, its bronze voice carrying across the sleeping community. The night embraces the workshop, and Thomas walks the short path to his cottage, where warmth and rest await. The last candle gutters and goes out, leaving only the gentle glow of the banked forge to light the workshop. Thomas takes one final look around his workshop, checking that everything is in its proper place, that all is ready for tomorrow's work. The tongs rest in their rack like sleeping serpents, their jaws shaped for gripping different forms of hot metal. Thomas runs his callous fingers along the edge of his workbench, feeling the countless small dents and burns that mark years of dedicated labor. In the corner stands his pride, a collection of his finest work displayed not for show, but for inspiration. The forge itself dominates one wall, its brick and stone construction the work of his grandfather's hands. Thomas moves to the doorway now, stepping out into the cool night air. From the baker's house comes the faint creak of settling timbers, the building cooling after a day of ovens burning hot. A dog barks once, briefly, then settles back into sleep. The cobblestone street stretches away in both directions, worn smooth by generations of feet, hooves, and cartwheels. Above, the stars emerge in full splendor, scattered across the dark sky like diamonds on black velvet. The constellations wheel overhead in their eternal dance, familiar friends that have guided him through many a sleepless night. The air feels clean and cool, carrying the scents of night-blooming flowers and the fresh smell of dew forming on the grass. A slight breeze stirs the leaves of the great oak that stands at the village center, its massive trunk scarred by centuries of weather and time. Children play beneath its branches during the day, and lovers meet in its shadow during summer evenings. The sound feels final, but not harsh, more like closing a book at the end of a good story. The workshop is sealed now, safe and secure, ready to sleep until morning returns. The doors themselves are his work, crafted from oak planks and bound with iron hinges he forged himself. Every piece of hardware, every nail and bracket bears the mark of his hammer. The boy has strong arms and a willing spirit, but he lacks the patience that comes only with years of practice. The bank coals still breathe their gentle light into the darkness, a sight that speaks of continuity, of traditions passed down through generations, of the eternal cycle of work and rest, creation and sleep. Inside, his wife Sarah sleeps peacefully, her breathing soft and regular. She understands his need for these quiet moments at the end of each day, the time he requires to transition from the heat and noise of the forge to the gentle rhythms of home and family. The building itself is solid and well made, its stone foundation laid by his grandfather, its timber frame raised by his father, its roof rethatched by Thomas himself just 2 years ago. Like the craft practiced within its walls, the structure represents the accumulated wisdom and effort of generations. Thomas watches its path with the same appreciation he brings to observing any skilled performance. The bat's flight may seem random, but it's actually a masterpiece of precision and efficiency, each turn and dive calculated to intercept prey invisible to human eyes. Time moves differently for a craftsman, measured not just in hours and minutes, but in the rhythm of hammer on anvil, the cycle of heating and cooling, the patient accumulation of skill through repetition and refinement. The small garden path leads to the front door, its flagstones worn smooth by years of use. Each stone was chosen and placed with care, fitted together like pieces of a puzzle to create a surface that will last for generations. Even in the simplest tasks, Thomas applies the principles that guide his craft: quality materials, careful planning, patient execution. The candlesticks for the church require delicate chasing work, patterns that must be both beautiful and meaningful. Thomas has found his place in the world, his role in the great chain of craft and tradition that stretches back through centuries and forward into an unknowable future. His work will outlast him, scattered throughout the village and beyond in the form of tools and hardware, decorative pieces and practical necessities. The horseshoes need to be fitted precisely to each animal, taking into account the wear patterns and gait peculiarities that make each horse unique. The apprentice William needs guidance on controlling the heat of his work, learning to read the subtle color changes that indicate proper temperature. You feel yourself becoming lighter, more peaceful, as if the tranquility of this medieval evening seeps into your very bones. Your breathing has slowed to match the gentle rhythm of the sleeping village, and your heartbeat finds the same peaceful cadence as the pulsing coals in the forge. The soft hoot of the owl becomes a gentle note in this nighttime symphony. Behind you, the workshop continues to glow softly, a beacon of warmth and safety in the darkness. The tools sleep on their hooks, perhaps dreaming of tomorrow's creations. The anvil rests in patient silence, ready for another day of faithful service. The forge breathes quietly, its coals pulsing like a slow, steady heartbeat. The rustle of leaves adds its whisper to the song. Even the distant murmur of the stream joins the melody that's carrying you deeper into peace. Like his own work at the forge, it represents the marriage of instinct and technique, of natural ability refined through constant practice. Feel the cobblestones beneath your feet growing softer, more yielding, until they feel like the most comfortable bed you've ever known. The night air wraps around you like the finest blankets, warm and soft and perfectly weighted. The latch operates smoothly, its mechanism precise and reliable. But it's not truly empty, it holds the accumulated wisdom of generations. The patient knowledge that transforms raw metal into objects of beauty and utility. Tomorrow it will wake again, filled with the sounds of productive labor, the sight of sparks flying from hammer blows, the smell of hot iron and coal smoke. Inside, the cottage is dark and quiet, filled with the comfortable presence of family and home. They glow like sleeping eyes, watching over the workshop through the quiet hours, ready to burst into flame at the first breath of the bellows. And in that security and that trust between craftsman and community lies the true value of the blacksmith's art, not just in the objects created, but in the bonds forged between people who understand that good work, done well, is the foundation of civilization itself. The cycle continues, as it has for centuries, as it will for centuries to come, the eternal rhythm of work and rest, creation and renewal, the craftsman's dance with fire and iron that shapes both metal and man. The kitchen still holds the faint aroma of the evening meal bread baked fresh that morning, vegetables from the garden, meat from animals raised by neighbors who trust Thomas to shoe their horses and repair their tools. Thomas knows that in a few hours the eastern horizon will begin to lighten, and another day will begin. She's learned to sleep through the sounds of his late-night routine, understanding that he needs this time to wind down from the intensity of his work. The bed is solid and well-made, crafted by the village carpenter, using techniques as old and honored as Thomas's own. The mattress is stuffed with straw from the fields and down from geese raised in the village, comfortable and warm. The forge will be lit, the bellows will breathe life into the coals, and the ancient dance of fire and iron will resume. But for now, there is only peace, only the quiet satisfaction of work, completed and rest earned. Each generation has added something, a new tool, an improved technique, a better understanding of the materials and methods that define the blacksmith's art. Thomas remembers his own apprenticeship, the frustration of watching his master work with such apparent ease, while his own efforts produce only crude approximations. The stream powers the mill where grain becomes flour, but it also serves the blacksmith's needs. The quench tub in his workshop is fed by a channel that diverts some of the stream's flow, providing the clean, cold water essential for tempering steel. The sound of running water has been the backdrop to his work for so many years that he hardly notices it during the day. But in the quiet of night, it becomes a gentle lullaby. The learning never really ends, even now, after 30 years at the forge. Thomas discovers new techniques, new ways to coax metal into the shapes he envisions. The tree has stood here longer than anyone can remember, older than the oldest house, older than the church itself. Tomorrow is Sunday, and the bell will call the village to worship, its bronze voice carrying across the fields and forests that surround their small community. Thomas cast that bell himself, working with the priest and the village elders to achieve exactly the right tone and timbre. It took 3 attempts before they achieved perfection, but the final result justified every hour of effort. The bell's voice is clear and true, audible for miles in every direction. He spent weeks perfecting the springs and tumblers, filing each piece by hand until they worked together with clockwork precision. The key, worn smooth by daily use, fits perfectly in his palm. She tends it with the same care and attention that Thomas brings to his metalwork, understanding that all good work requires patience, knowledge, and love. The partnership between them extends beyond marriage into a shared appreciation for craft and quality, for work done well and life lived with purpose. It's more than just a tool, it's a symbol of security, of the trust the village places in his work. She helps her mother in the garden and the kitchen, learning the arts of preservation and preparation that keep a household running smoothly. But she also spends time in the workshop, watching Thomas work, asking questions about the properties of different metals, the temperatures needed for various operations. Perhaps she'll marry a craftsman herself, carrying forward the traditions that have shaped their family for generations. It's a living monument to endurance, to the power of deep roots and patient growth. Thomas pulls the workshop doors closed with a soft creak of hinges, then secures them with a simple wooden bar. Each piece may seem simple, but Thomas knows that simple work done well is the foundation of all craft. A poorly made horseshoe can lame a valuable animal. A weak hinge can leave a family's home unsecured. Every piece that leaves his workshop carries his reputation with it. The lock is a masterpiece of his craft, its mechanism intricate and precise. As he turns the key, Thomas thinks of all the work that waits inside. Tomorrow, he'll finish the commission for the church, a set of candlesticks that must be perfect for the altar. The priest has been patient, understanding that such work cannot be rushed. Each piece must be shaped with reverence, crafted not just with skill, but with devotion. The silver will be worked cold, hammered, and chased until it gleams like captured moonlight. There's also the practical work that keeps the village running: horseshoes for the farmers' draft horses, nails for the carpenters' projects, hinges for doors and gates throughout the community. The young apprentice, William, shows promise but still has much to learn. As the blacksmith walks toward his cottage, his footsteps fading on the cobblestones, the workshop behind him glows softly through its small windows. His cottage sits at the end of the lane, its thatched roof silver in the moonlight, its windows dark and welcoming. The garden beside the cottage shows Sarah's touch-neat rows of vegetables, herbs for cooking and healing, flowers chosen for their beauty and fragrance. Their daughter Emma, now 15, shows signs of inheriting both parents' appreciation for skilled work. Thomas pauses at his gate, looking back once more at the workshop. The night air carries the sound of the stream that runs behind the village, its water clear and cold even in the driest summers. A bat flickers overhead, its flight erratic as it hunts insects in the darkness. The church bell tower rises above the other buildings, its stone walls pale in the moonlight. Inside the cottage, a clock ticks steadily on the mantelpiece, another piece of Thomas's work, its brass movement crafted with the same attention to detail he brings to every project. The moon continues its journey across the star-filled sky, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow as it moves between the clouds. He opens the cottage gate, its hinges moving silently on pins he oiled just last week. The front door, like the workshop doors, is secured with hardware of his own making. Upstairs, Sarah stirs slightly as he enters their bedroom, but doesn't wake. As Thomas settles into sleep, his mind already begins to plan the next day's work. But these concerns fade as sleep approaches, replaced by the deep satisfaction that comes from a life lived with purpose and skill. The workshop sleeps now, its tools resting in their appointed places, its forge banked and quiet. In the darkness, the banked coals continue their slow burn, maintaining just enough heat to make the morning's lighting easier. The village sleeps around the workshop, secure in the knowledge that skilled hands are ready to meet whatever challenges the new day might bring. The night air moves softly around you, carrying away the last tensions of the day. Let yourself drift now like a leaf on a gentle stream, carried by the current of this peaceful night. The sounds of the village grow fainter and more distant, blending into a lullaby that seems to rise from the earth itself. You're floating now, suspended between earth and sky, held gently by the night itself. The cobblestone streets gleam wet with evening dew, reflecting the warm light that spills from cottage windows. Thatched roofs rise and fall like gentle hills against the star-scattered sky, and somewhere in the distance you hear the soft blowing of cattle settling for the night. Past the baker's shop where tomorrow's loaves already rise in their pans, past the weaver's cottage where the great loom stands silent until dawn, past the miller's house where the wheel turns endlessly, grinding grain into flour with the patient persistence of centuries. The air carries the mingled scents of wood smoke, fresh bread, and the metallic tang of iron and perfume that speaks of honest work and simple contentment. The forge breathes steadily, its banked coals pulsing with inner fire, and you're drawn to it as surely as iron is drawn to a magnet. The forge dominates one wall, its stone hearth blackened by countless fires, its bellows hanging ready to breathe life into tomorrow's flames. Every tool has its purpose, every surface its function. There are hinges of various sizes, their pens fitted with the precision that comes only from years of practice. Door latches, pot hooks, fire tools, and decorative ironwork all speak of a craftsman who takes pride in every piece that leaves his forge. The quench tub stands ready with its dark water, waiting to receive red-hot steel and transform it with a hiss of steam. A half-forged knife blade rests on the workbench, its edge rough but promising. They represent the soul of the craft, the understanding that even the most utilitarian trade can produce objects of genuine beauty. The work would have required dozens of heats, each petal formed separately, then welded together with a skill that comes only from decades of practice. It's a meditation in metal, a prayer offered up in hammer blows and careful filing. The pages contain sketches of projects, notes on iron quality, and observations about the craft passed down through generations. One entry catches your eye: the iron teaches patience. There are notes on different types of iron and steel, observations about how various alloys behave under the hammer, and careful records of successful heat treatments. Each piece of iron has its own character, reads one entry. The forge continues its steady breathing, the coals pulsing with inner light. Outside, the village sleeps under its blanket of stars, but here in the workshop, time seems suspended. The iron would go into the fire, heating slowly from black to red to orange to yellow-white, the craftsman watching carefully for the exact moment when the metal reached forging temperature. Each blow would be placed with precision, shaping the iron gradually, coaxing it into the desired form. The craftsman's movements would be economical and sure, wasting no motion, no heat, no effort. This efficiency comes only from years of practice, from muscles that remember the weight of the hammer and hands that know exactly how much force to apply. Too cool, and the iron would resist the hammer's blows. Too hot, and it would spark and burn away. The craftsman would examine his work, checking for flaws, planning the next series of hammer blows. The scrape of files shaping metal, the satisfied grunt of the master as a difficult joint finally came together properly. These sounds would blend with conversation as craftsmen shared techniques, discussed challenging projects, and passed along the accumulated wisdom of their trade. The bellows would wheeze and sigh as apprentices kept the fire at proper heat. The anvil stands patient and solid, its surface cleared of the day's work. This is where he sits during the quiet moments, while iron heats in the forge, while apprentices practice their basic skills, while he plans the next phase of a complex project. The chair faces the forge, positioned so the craftsman can monitor the fire's condition while attending to other tasks. The forge breathes quietly, its banked coals glowing like sleeping embers, maintaining just enough heat to spring back to life with morning's first breath from the bellows. Hammers would ring against anvil in complex rhythms, sometimes the steady beat of drawing out iron, sometimes the rapid tapping of detail work, sometimes the heavy blows needed to upset thick stock. This is where experience shows most clearly, in the ability to see not just what the iron is, but what it could become. How many craftsmen have sat in the same spot, watching the same dance of flame and iron. How many problems have been solved? How many innovations discovered? How many young apprentices guided toward mastery from this simple wooden seat? While one piece heated in the forge, he might be filing another or fitting a handle to a third. This juggling of multiple tasks is essential to productive smithing. The fire is too expensive to waste, and iron cools too quickly to allow for single-minded focus on one piece at a time. The master can look at a rough forging and envision the finished piece, understanding exactly what steps are needed to bridge the gap between current reality and final goal. They would start with simple tasks, keeping the fire fed, organizing tools, preparing stock for the master's use. Gradually, they would be allowed to try simple forgings under careful supervision, learning to read the iron's color, to feel the proper rhythm of the hammer, to understand the thousand small details that separate competent work from true craftsmanship. You understand now why the craftsman loves this place. It's not just a workspace, but a sanctuary where the ancient arts are preserved and practiced. The smith's job is not to impose his will upon the metal, but to discover what it wants to become and help it achieve that form. This understanding transforms the craft from mere metalworking into something approaching art, a collaboration between human skill and natural material. The master has documented which coals burn hottest, which flux works best for welding, and how to recognize the subtle color changes that indicate proper forging temperature. It cannot be hurried, cannot be forced. It yields only to steady heat and careful pressure, much like the human heart. The fire would roar to life, hungry for the day's work, while the craftsman selected his first project from the pieces waiting on the workbench. Perhaps he would begin with something practical, a set of horseshoes for the miller's draft horses, or hinges for a new cottage being built at the village's edge. The iron rose in particular captures your imagination. A set of forming blocks for shaping curves, punches for creating decorative holes, and swages for putting consistent curves in iron stock. These tools represent the craftsman's understanding that sometimes you must make the tools before you can make the work, a philosophy that speaks to the deep patience required by the craft. Its petals are so delicately formed that they seem ready to tremble in the slightest breeze. Yet you know they're forged from the same strong iron that makes horseshoes and plowshares. Beside it, a collection of nails waits to be finished, each one hand-forged with the care that mass production would later abandon. The sketches show how each bar will be shaped, how the decorative elements will integrate with the structural ones, how the whole will create something greater than the sum of its parts. It's clear that this gate exists fully formed in the master's mind, waiting only for the time and materials to bring it into physical reality. These pieces tell the story of work interrupted by nightfall, of projects that will resume with tomorrow's first light. The coal forge holds tomorrow's fuel, each piece selected for its burning qualities. The forge breathes steadily, its coals glowing like sleeping dragons, ready to roar back to life at the touch of the bellows. Here, away from the practical necessities of daily commissions, you discover the true artistry of the craft. A delicate iron rose blooms from a stem of twisted metal, its petals hammered thin and shaped with infinite patience. Beside it, a decorative candle holder arises in spirals of wrought iron, each curve flowing naturally into the next. The tools wait patiently, each one eager to fulfill its purpose in the morning's work. Even the iron stock seems to rest contentedly, knowing that skilled hands will soon transform it into something useful and beautiful. The workbench bears the gentle wear of countless projects, its surface scarred but sturdy. Tools hang in perfect order along the walls, hammers of every size and weight, tongs that have gripped red-hot iron for generations, files and rasps worn smooth by countless hands. The heavy wooden door stands slightly ajar, inviting you into a world of creation and craft. You walk these streets as if you've known them all your life, your feet finding their way without conscious thought. and then you see it, the blacksmith's workshop, its windows glowing like amber jewels in the darkness. Inside, the workshop embraces you with warmth and the comfortable weight of tradition. This is where magic happens, not the flashy magic of wizards and spells, but the deeper magic of transformation, where raw metal becomes tools, horseshoes, hinges, and 1,000 other necessities of daily life. The anvil stands in the center of it all, a monument to the craftsman's art. Its surface bears the gentle scars of 10,000 hammer blows, each mark a testament to something useful brought into being. The hardy hole and pritchel hole wait patiently for the specialized work they were designed to accommodate, while the face of the anvil gleams with the polish that comes only from years of dedicated use. You run your hand along the anvil's edge, feeling the cool solidity of iron beneath your palm. As you explore the workshop, you begin to understand the rhythm that governs this place. On the walls, you notice the work of the master craftsman horseshoes hanging in neat rows, each one shaped to fit a specific hoof, each one a small masterpiece of functional art. But it's not just the finished work that captures your attention, it's the works in progress. You settle into the workshop's rhythm, feeling the peace that comes from being surrounded by honest craft. As the night deepens, you find yourself drawn to a corner of the workshop where the master's personal projects rest. These pieces speak of winter evenings when the day's practical work was done, when the craftsman could indulge his artistic vision. You imagine the master craftsman working on this rose, heating small pieces of iron to cherry red, then carefully shaping each petal with hammer and anvil. The workshop holds other treasures too. In one corner, you discover a collection of specialized tools that the master has made for his own use. As you explore further, you find the master's journal, its leather cover worn smooth by handling. Another page shows detailed drawings of a gate the master is planning, not just any gate, but one that will incorporate both function and beauty. The journal reveals the depth of knowledge required by the craft. But beyond the technical knowledge, the journal reveals the philosophy that guides the craftsman's work. As the night progresses, you find yourself settling into the workshop's peaceful rhythm. You imagine the master arriving with dawn's first light, stirring the forge back to full life with practiced movements of the bellows. The work would begin with selecting the proper iron, choosing pieces that are free from flaws and suited to the task at hand. Then would come the dance of hammer and anvil, the rhythmic ringing that has echoed through smithies for thousands of years. Between heats, there would be moments of quiet assessment. You picture the workshop during the busy hours of the day, filled with the sounds of productive work. The master would move between projects with practiced efficiency, keeping several pieces of work in progress simultaneously. Apprentices would scurry about, learning the craft through observation and gradually increasing responsibility. The workshop would be filled with the comfortable sounds of productive work, the hiss of hot iron meeting water in the quench tub. But now, in the quiet hours of night, the workshop rests. The tools hang in their proper places, clean and ready for tomorrow's use. You find yourself drawn to the master's chair, a simple wooden seat worn smooth by years of use. Settling into the chair, you feel the weight of tradition surrounding you. The view from the chair encompasses the entire workshop, and you begin to understand the careful organization that makes efficient work possible. Every tool is positioned for easy access, every surface cleared for productive use. The layout reflects decades of refinement, with each element placed exactly where experience has proven it most useful. It's not just about shaping metal, it's about understanding the relationship between heat and time, between force and finesse, between individual skill and traditional knowledge. The craftsman must be part artist, part engineer, part philosopher, balancing creativity with practicality, innovation with proven methods. From here, you can see the progression of iron from raw material to finished product. Every tool becomes not just to implement, but a brush in the craftsman's palette. The master craftsman is not just an individual worker, but a link in an unbroken chain stretching back to the first human who discovered that iron could be shaped with heat and hammer. Every piece of iron stock represents potential not just for useful objects, but for expressions of creativity and skill. The forge itself becomes an altar where raw materials are transformed through the application of knowledge, skill, and artistic vision. This is more than just a place of work. It's a temple to human creativity, a sanctuary where the ancient dialogue between craftsman and material continues unbroken. Here, the fundamental human drive to create, to improve, to make beautiful and useful things finds its perfect expression. It has witnessed the creation of thousands of useful objects, has felt the impact of millions of hammer blows, has been the solid foundation for countless acts of creation. Its scarred surface tells the story of productive work, of problems solved and needs met through the application of skill and knowledge. Stock iron rests in neat piles, sorted by size and quality. The workshop's peace seeps into your bones. Its rhythm synchronizes with your heartbeat. You understand now why the craftsman loves this place, why he rises each morning eager to return to his forge and anvil. He'll enter the workshop with the quiet satisfaction of a man who loves his work, who finds in it not just livelihood but meaning. The forge will roar back to life under his skilled hands. The tools will sing their ancient songs, and the dance of creation will begin anew. This is where he finds his truest self, where his skills and knowledge combine to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Let the peaceful rhythm of the medieval village draw you deeper into rest, deeper into dreams, deeper into the perfect peace that comes when the day's work is finished and night offers its gift of restoration. You see customers bringing their needs and problems, confident that skilled hands can provide solutions. The rhythm of night carries you deeper into dreams, deeper into the understanding that some things are eternal, the satisfaction of work well done, the beauty that can emerge from the marriage of skill and material, the peace that comes from being part of something larger than yourself. You understand the craft from within, feeling the subtle vibrations that tell you when the metal is ready, sensing the exact moment when another heat is needed, knowing instinctively how much force to apply and where to place each blow. Safe and warm and perfectly at peace in this timeless moment, where all is well, all is quiet, all is exactly as it should be. Your hands know the work, even when your mind is elsewhere. Your muscles remember the rhythm, even when you're tired. Your eyes can read the iron's condition, even in the flickering light of the forge. You see the workshop humming with productive activity, filled with the sounds and sights of useful work, being accomplished with skill and pride. The rose blooms under your hands, becoming not just an object of beauty, but a symbol of the transformation that occurs when human skill meets natural material in the sacred space of the workshop. Work in progress occupies the central areas where it can be easily accessed and monitored. It is a lullaby as old as time itself, the song the earth sings to all its children when day is done and night spreads its gentle wings over the world. It dreams of the endless cycle of creation that turns like the wheel of seasons, bringing new needs and new opportunities for creative response. Where each day brings simple pleasures, where life's rhythm follows the ancient patterns of sunrise and sunset, work and rest, creation and sleep. You're safe here, held by the embrace of centuries, cradled by the wisdom of generations who discovered the secret of finding peace in simple things. The forge dreams of tomorrow's fires, the anvil of tomorrow's hammer blows, the tools of tomorrow's useful work. Iron still responds to heat in the same way it did 1,000 years ago. Each craftsman brings his own understanding to the work, his own solutions to common problems, his own aesthetic vision to decorative pieces. The tools wait patiently on their hooks, ready for another day of useful work. The anvil stands solid and eternal, a monument to the craftsman's art, and the forge dreams its own dreams of fire and iron, of beautiful things yet to be made, of the endless cycle of creation that turns like the wheel of seasons, eternal and peaceful and good. The iron rose could only have been created by this particular master with his unique combination of technical skill and artistic sensibility. The hammer still shapes metal through the same physical laws that governed ancient smithies. The craftsman still must develop the same sensitivity to material and process that has always separated masters from mere workers. The hammers remember the rhythm of countless forgings, the tongs recall the heat of red-hot iron, the files hold the memory of surfaces smoothed to perfection. Each tool is not just an object, but a repository of experience, a physical embodiment of accumulated skill. Finished pieces await delivery or further work, carefully stored to prevent damage. The entire workshop flows like a river, with materials entering at one end and finished goods emerging at the other. As you sit in the master's chair, you begin to understand the deeper rhythms that govern this craft. The night deepens around you, and the workshop settles into even deeper quiet. The forge's breathing slows, its coals banking themselves for the long hours until dawn. It's not just decorative art, it's a statement of philosophy. It says that even the most practical craft can aspire to beauty, that utility and artistry need not be enemies. The rose demonstrates that the same skills used to make horseshoes and hinges can also create objects of genuine aesthetic value. Outside, the village sleeps peacefully, secure in the knowledge that skilled craftsmen stand ready to meet their needs. The blacksmith's workshop represents more than just one trade. It's a symbol of human ingenuity, of the drive to create useful and beautiful things from raw materials. You think about the iron rose resting in its corner, and you begin to understand what it represents. This understanding transforms your perception of the entire workshop. The workshop holds the accumulated wisdom of generations. Each tool has been refined through countless uses, each technique proven through years of application. This continuity gives the craft its deep stability. While fashions change and technologies evolve, the fundamental principles of blacksmithing remain constant. Yet within this stability, there's room for innovation and personal expression. As you contemplate these deeper meanings, the workshop seems to glow with inner significance. The tools on the walls seem to whisper stories of the work they've accomplished. The anvil, standing solid and eternal in the workshop's center, represents the unchanging foundation upon which all this creativity rests. As the night reaches its deepest point, you feel yourself becoming part of this timeless scene. The workshop dreams its own dreams in the quiet hours, dreams of projects yet to be undertaken, of challenges yet to be met, of young apprentices yet to be trained. And you dream too, carried deeper into this peaceful world where time moves slowly and gently. The workshop glows on through the night, its banked coals breathing steadily, keeping vigil until morning returns. In your dreams, you see the master returning with dawn's first light, his footsteps sure and familiar on the cobblestone path. You see apprentices arriving, eager to learn, their eyes bright with a desire to master this ancient craft. But for now, in these quiet hours before dawn, the workshop rests in perfect peace. Sleep now, carried by this river of tranquility, held by the gentle embrace of the night. The last sound you hear is the soft whisper of wind through the village streets, carrying the sense of wood smoke and iron, of honest work and peaceful rest. Sleep and dream of forge light and starlight, of hammers and anvils, of iron roses and quiet nights in the medieval blacksmith's workshop, where time flows like honey and every moment glows with the golden light of contentment. The workshop sleeps, the village sleeps, the world sleeps, and you sleep too, carried into dreams by the gentle rhythm of night in your deepest dreams. You become the craftsman yourself, feeling the weight of the hammer in your hand, the heat of the forge on your face, the satisfaction of iron yielding to your will. This is the deepest magic of the craft, not just the technical knowledge, but the intuitive understanding that comes only from years of practice. And in this stream of perfect craftsmanship, you create your own iron rose, shaping each petal with infinite care, welding each joint with precision born of deep understanding. Sleep,